Chapter 174. The top 5 originally received a top-quality sensory stone, and the first place could even make a request to the school. In the past, the first place had always kept this request a secret, not easily making a request to the school. What a joke! How could this request be casually made? Of course, it would be saved up for later use. Only Zicheng would be stupid enough to use it to save Eve. Zicheng, on the other hand, didn't regret it. She had raised quite a bit of favorability in the past few days, and quite a few people's favorability had already risen to 90. If she worked a little harder, 100 wouldn't be far away. The 6th to 10th place each received an advanced sensory stone, and the 11th to 50th place received an intermediate sensory stone. After 50th place there was nothing. As for what the sensory stone was, the school didn't specifically explain. They only said that when the next semester started, most of them would need it. This time's mission was easy for some people, but it was very difficult for most people. Most of the students didn't reach the goal they set. They had to earn the money they promised before the end of the next semester, or else they would have to repeat a year in the next semester to continue this mission. Actually, this mission wouldn't take more than a year for people with ability. For example, Zicheng, Irene, and the others were the best examples. This was also the reason why the results were only released halfway through the semester. According to the school's rules, only the top 50 students had been selected before the results could be announced. As for those students who didn't manage to complete their goals in one semester, they would have to use the second half of the semester to continue this task. Of course, if there was someone in the second half of the year who could successfully make a comeback and squeeze into the top 50, then they would also receive the reward they deserved. However, the Notre Dame du Starlight had been open for so many years, and it wasn't that there weren't any who could make a comeback. In the past few thousand years, there were only 1 or 2 who could make a comeback. Needless to say, the chances of making a comeback and entering the top 50 were very slim. After the simple award ceremony, the first years returned to their classrooms. Because this was only a first-year mission, only the first years were present. Students from other years wouldn't come. After returning to the classroom, Fengwu received all the items that the teacher had taken away. Speaking of which, at the beginning of the money-making mission, the teacher had ordered all the students' spatial equipment and crystal cards to be confiscated. At that time, many students in the class were unwilling. Fengwu also didn't want to let the ring leave her, but because it was the school's request, she had no choice but to comply. Later on, because he had to go on a mission, and Little Bun could no longer be brought away with him using the spatial ring, Ajur went to find his teacher. In the end, through some unknown method, his teacher agreed to only take away the items in the spatial ring, and not the spatial equipment. Later, many students found out that they could do this. Of course, they went to their teachers immediately and used the same method to get back their spatial equipment. He also promised his teacher that he would never sell his spatial equipment to raise money to complete the mission. Of course, there were also some students who didn't ask the teachers for their spatial equipment because they didn't want the items in their spatial equipment to explode. When retrieving her spatial equipment, Fengwu counted the items in the spatial ring in front of the teachers. At that time, when those rare items were sorted out, even the teachers were shocked. They really couldn't tell that Fengwu was actually a nouveau riche. These magic cores and all kinds of magic materials, many of them were high-quality goods that couldn't be bought outside. There were even some rare ores that were said to only be produced in a few dangerous places. There were many nouveau riches in the school, but the only one who could be so rich that the teachers didn't dare to believe it was Fengwu. Although the other students' family conditions were very good, they were still only students. Of course, the truly valuable things in their family couldn't be placed on a child. Those teachers didn't know that Fengwu actually didn't know how valuable the things in the ring were. Ever since she got the ring from Little Yu, Fengwu didn't carefully look at what was inside. She just used it to store more things. Although she didn't look carefully, Fengwu still knew that there weren't many things in the ring. There was only a small pile. Don't expect a girl who just transmigrated to know the value of these local items. The Fengwu girl who only liked to eat usually didn't even bother to look at these things. Don't talk about understanding what was inside the ring and knowing how much it was worth. Xiaowu, you're really too lucky. You actually got a grade sensing stone. This thing is very valuable. If you want a grade sensing stone, you have to use a lot of credits to exchange for it. Even the seniors in the upper grades can't afford it. Black Gui immediately moved to Fengwu's side and said with a face full of envy. Mo Gui's luck this time wasn't bad. He got a good result in the 30th place and obtained a medium grade sensing stone. Although it wasn't high grade or top quality, he still felt quite satisfied. Fengwu took out a white, crystal-like stone from the ring. This was the mission's ultimate reward, a top-grade sensing stone. Don't look down on this stone just because it was the size of a baby's fist. At Notre Dame du Starlight, one had to spend an astronomical amount of credits to exchange for it from a teacher. This is it. As expected of a top-grade one. The color is so clear, and you can't even see the slightest bit of impurity. It's really beautiful. Mo Gui exclaimed in surprise. His expression was like that of a 10,000-year-old bachelor, who suddenly saw a peerless beauty. No matter how one looked at it, it was wretched. The surrounding students all took a few steps back, not wanting to pay attention to this embarrassing fellow. You're drooling. Fengwu looked at the excited Mo Gui and sternly reminded him. Ah. He quickly wiped the saliva from the corner of his mouth and smiled shyly at Fengwu. Xiaowu, can I touch you? Touch stones? What kind of hobby was that? Although Fengwu didn't understand, she still nodded generously. At the same time, she handed the top-grade sensing stone to Mo Gui. Mo Gui received it as if he was on a pilgrimage, his eyes filled with a hint of fanaticism. What exactly is that stone? Look at Mo Gui. It's like he's seen a peerless beauty. A female student standing not far from Mo Gui asked curiously as she pointed at Mo Gui's embarrassing appearance. Actually, for it to be used as a reward for the top 5, they could already guess that it must be very precious. However, as for how precious it was, not many people knew about it. At the very least, most of the people in the class did not know. That's right. He didn't even explain. Look at him. I'm afraid that the top-grade sensing stone is something incredible. Chapter 175. That's indeed a good thing. That stone is the key to another world, Peita said with a mysterious smile. The key to another world? What do you mean? Everyone's curiosity was piqued, including Fengwu. Fengwu didn't know what the stone was for. After hearing Peita's words, her curiosity was piqued as well. She turned her little head and stared at Peita. Peita smiled gently and elegantly. Do you still remember the place where the last test was when we took the entrance examination? It was a magical world with all kinds of opportunities and dangers. It was a world created by a genius thousands of years ago, Longzi Gamer. Legend has it that when Longzi Gamer ascended to the celestial realm, he left this world called the Mirage in the human world. Notre Dame du Starlight is in charge of it. In the Mirage, you can practice all kinds of combat skills and temper your mind power. You can even find all kinds of gifts that His Excellency Longzi Gamer left in the Mirage. Fengwu's exquisite sensing stone is the key to the Mirage. Only those who have the sensing stone can sense the entrance to the Mirage and enter it. These were things that could only be known after entering the Notre Dame du Starlight. If it weren't for Peida's family background, he wouldn't have known these things. You're saying that the small world we entered last time is the Mirage? Wow, that place is huge. His Excellency Longzi Gamer is really amazing to be able to create such a world. To be able to create a world was something only a god could do. This world was completed before His Excellency Longzi Gamer became a god. It was really amazing. You're wrong about one thing. That place is indeed the Mirage, but that's not the entirety of the Mirage. Legend has it that the real Mirage is extremely huge. Its size is comparable to our entire continent. The place we entered was merely an examination hall isolated by the teachers. The size of the Mirage is negligible compared to the entire Mirage. Wow, that's amazing. As expected of His Excellency Longzi Gamer. He's so powerful. When will we be able to enter the Mirage to take a look? The school gave the sensing stone to Fengwu. Does that mean that Fengwu can enter the virtual realm to cultivate? The students in the class began to discuss among themselves. Now that they knew what a sensory stone was, These students who had just entered Notre Dame du Starlight began to feel envious and jealous of Fengwu. That's right. Students who possess a perception stone can enter the mirage before others. However, the rest of you don't have to worry. As long as you complete this money-making mission, the school will give you a basic perception stone. However, the first 50 students will receive it first at the end of the first semester. Moreover, the perception stone they receive will be better than the others. Those ranked after the 50th could only be distributed at the end of the second semester. The basic perception stone could only allow one to stay in the mirage for 4 hours, the intermediate perception stone could last for 8 hours, and the advanced perception stone had no time limit. One could stay in the mirage for as long as they wished. However, the advanced perception stone cannot replenish the body's energy. After staying in the mirage for a certain amount of time, one would have to leave the mirage to eat or drink potions to replenish their energy. If one stayed in the mirage for too long, their body would not be able to take it. Over time, it would even cause damage to the body. However, the mirage has taken precautions against this. The mirage is able to sense the condition of a human's body. If one's constitution is too weak and their energy is insufficient to maintain the mirage, the overgod of the mirage will forcefully kick them out. Payer Bay then explained the different types of perception stones so that the students could better understand them. Since the advanced perception stone is so powerful, what are the uses of the supreme grade perception stone? Silda asked curiously. Yeah, what's the use of the supreme grade perception stone? It should be much more powerful than the advanced perception stone. The students began to discuss among themselves, expressing their curiosity about the supreme grade perception stone. Fengwu perked up her ears and listened even more attentively. When she heard about the mirage, Fengwu thought of the old curator. If she could enter that world again, did that mean she would be able to see the old curator again? Fengwu really liked the old curator, who took care of her. Originally, she thought that she would never see him again. Who would have thought that she would actually be able to see him again? Fengwu's eyes lit up, and the corners of her mouth curved upwards. Mo Gue hugged the supreme grade perception stone, drooling all over the floor. Finally, he had seen enough and reluctantly returned the perception stone to Fengwu. The supreme grade perception stone is the same as the advanced perception stone. It has no time limit, and can stay in the mirage at all times. However, there is one thing that the advanced perception stone cannot compare to. The supreme grade perception stone can automatically replenish the energy needed by humans. Therefore, those who possess the supreme grade perception stone don't have to come down to eat like those who have the advanced perception stone. They can stay in the mirage at all times while their bodies remain in a dormant state. However, it's not good to stay in the mirage all the time. It's better to get up and move around a bit. I heard that there was once a person who used a supreme grade perception stone to stay in the mirage for a month. In the end, when he came back down, he couldn't even walk. He only regained control of his body after 7 days. This lesson tells us that even with the supreme grade perception stone, you can't stay in the mirage forever. Your body will rust if you don't move around. After Mo Gue returned the supreme grade perception stone to Fengwu, he casually took a bite. Peida didn't mind someone stealing his limelight. As expected, you know. Peida's face didn't show any displeasure. Instead, he was curious as to which faction Mo Gue belonged to. The school didn't allow the seniors to reveal too much to the freshmen, so Mo Gue must have found out through other channels. Could he be a member of one of those big families? Although the mirage was left to the Notre Dame du Starlight by Sir Longza Gamer, there was more than one place in the mirage. There were several other places in the mirage that were controlled by other families. These families would also use the mirage to cultivate their children. Therefore, other than the people of the Notre Dame du Starlight, only the top forces and families on the continent would know about the existence of the mirage. No need to guess. I'm not one of those people you think I am. My family is just an ordinary small noble. I heard about it from a friend of mine. My friend's family just happens to know some inside information. If it weren't for the fact that we're all classmates at the Notre Dame du Starlight, I wouldn't dare to talk about it outside. Chapter 176. Mo Gue shrugged. He didn't need to ask to know what Peida was thinking. Mo Gui wasn't lying. He knew that it was a good friend who told him. He had promised his friend that he wouldn't take the initiative to spread the news about the Perception Stone and the Mirage unless he entered the Notre Dame du Starlight and obtained a Perception Stone among the freshmen. I see. Peita nodded and didn't ask any more questions. After knowing what the Perception Stone was and what it could be used for, the students who hadn't completed their missions exploded with enthusiasm. They wanted to complete their missions as soon as possible so that they could enter the Mirage and gain experience. Fengwu's top-grade Perception Stone was, of course, so terrible that it attracted a lot of attention. Previously, no one knew what it was, so there weren't many people who wanted to see it. However, after knowing how precious the Perception Stone was, the number of onlookers immediately increased. Fortunately, Fengwu wasn't a stingy girl. She generously took out the top-grade Perception Stone for the students to see. For the entire day, almost all the students in the class were discussing the Perception Stone. They were even more fascinated by the Mirage. At this moment, Irene was looking at the top-grade Perception Stone in her hand in a classroom of the Sorcerer Department. Her eyes couldn't hide the excitement in them. The Mirage was a magical place. Everything in the Mirage was a bit like the holographic online game world in novels. However, the Mirage didn't need to be connected to the internet, gaming pods, gaming helmets, and the like. One could enter it just by relying on the Perception Stone. She knew that the Mirage hid a huge secret. In the novel, Zicheng had gained the favor of a certain important person in the Mirage. He had learned many lost magic spells and gradually became stronger. Later on, she had used her favorability system to bring that important person to the real world. Then, she had caused a reign of terror on the human continent. Oh right. Zicheng's male lead was known in the Mirage. He seemed to be a direct descendant of a certain big family. His family background was extraordinary. He was powerful, handsome, and spoiled the female lead. He was simply the perfect male lead. Tisk, what's so great about it? It's just a rock. Is there a need to stare at it for so long? Eve came out again to show off her presence. Ever since Irene obtained the inheritance of the Tomb of the Gods, Eve would find trouble with her whenever she had the chance. She was like a housefly, which was simply annoying. Irene turned her head and pretended not to see him. She didn't want to pay attention to this kind of supporting role that was destined to be cannon fodder, Irene thought proudly. Eve still wanted to say something to hurt Irene, but unfortunately, she was dragged away by Zicheng. Eve could only bite her lip and hope that she could kill Irene with her eyes. Irene, pretend you didn't see anything. In the first semester, the swordsman department spent most of their time in theory classes. The swordsman department clearly emphasized actual combat, but the teachers did not arrange any actual combat classes. This made the students very disappointed. They could only hope that in the next semester, they would arrange some new classes. Always attending theory classes was the most boring. After the results of the money-making mission were announced, the semester ended just like that. There wasn't even a ceremony for the end of the semester. At the end of the semester, most of the students chose to go home. Ajur and Mo Gui naturally had to return to their families. Even Fengwu's 3 girls in the same dormitory went home one by one. Only Fengwu was left in the dormitory. Fengwu packed up her things and didn't stay in the dormitory. Tianyue's family had already invited her to stay in their house. Fengwu never knew how to be polite, so she nodded and agreed. For Fengwu, there was nothing better than living in Tianyue's house. There was someone to take care of little Bun. For Fengwu, the saddest thing was that she couldn't eat in the student cafeteria during the holidays. Fengwu said that the food in the cafeteria was okay and cheap. Unfortunately, she couldn't eat it now. Fortunately, Little White had good culinary skills. Soon, Fengwu forgot about the student cafeteria under Little White's feeding. Due to the holidays, Tianyue's family originally worked in the student cafeteria of Notre Dame du Starlight. Now that the students had left, the cafeteria naturally closed. Right now, Tianyue's family had nothing to do at home. Similarly, Tianyue's children were also on holiday. Of course, Tink was included. Fengwu naturally received a warm welcome when she arrived at Tianyue's house. Little Bun was directly carried away by Tianyue. According to Tianyue, she was someone who couldn't stay idle and had nothing to do. Before school started, Little Bun would be taken care of by her. Fengwu girl didn't have any objections to this. Xiao Wu, is the two-realm battlefield fun? I heard that there are many powerful fellows there. Did you meet them? Tianyue's son Lan Tian asked curiously with his large eyes. I did. How powerful is that fellow? Is he as powerful as the demon you met last time? Lowly Lan Yu also came to join in the fun. This last was asking about the demon that Fengwu and the others met when they went to Frost City. Yes, this one is even more powerful. Fengwu thought for a while and said. Wow, then how did you guys defeat him? Did the Star Hall's emissary come to help again? Tank was most curious about the emissary of the Star Hall. At such a young age, this little fellow had already decided to work in the Star Hall in the future. Fengwu shook her head. No, the Star Hall's emissary. It was Xiaochun who defeated him. Who is Xiaochun? The three little ones asked. Xiaochun is Xiaochun, my friend. Fengwu blinked innocently. The three little ones sighed and gave up asking who Xiaochun was. Xiao Wu, tell us what happened in the two-realm battlefield this time. Can you tell us from the beginning? Lan Yu said coquettishly. Okay. Fengwu didn't refuse. She opened her mouth and told them everything that happened along the way. Of course, she only told them what happened after they entered the two-realm battlefield. As for what happened in the small town before, the children didn't ask, and with Fengwu's personality, she naturally wouldn't take the initiative to tell them. 10 minutes later, the three little ones couldn't help but admit that it was a mistake to let Fengwu tell them a story. Was there anyone who didn't add some personal emotions or inflection when telling a story? Important things should be asked 3 times. When Fengwu told a story, she told them everything that happened, as well as what they said along the way and what they encountered. She didn't even raise her pitch by half a note. The three little ones regretted it. If they had known, they'd rather wait for Big Brother Ajur to come back than look for Xiao Wu to tell them stories. They wanted to listen to their adventures, but in the end, there wasn't even the slightest bit of excitement. Fengwu didn't know how the three little ones despised her for not having the talent to tell stories. She was honestly telling them everything that happened after they entered the two-realm battlefield. She didn't look like she was telling a story, but more like she was giving a report. Tianyu, who was hugging Little Bun and sitting at the side, almost laughed out loud when she saw this scene. This was the first time she saw these three little ones being defeated. Why did she feel that it was so interesting? Chapter 177. In the distant eastern ancient country, the Feng family was in a heated argument. Or rather, it should be said that the Feng family's patriarch, Feng Wuliu, was roaring at his son, the current patriarch of the Feng family, Feng Tianxing. What do you think this is? She dared to propose to a male classmate not long after school started, and she even dared to take the child to school to raise. She's really grown up. Our Feng family's face has been completely lost because of her. Feng Wuliu became louder and more agitated as he spoke. This is all your fault. How did you teach your daughter? How did you teach her to be like this? I know that child's talent isn't good, and I didn't expect her to become a talent. As long as she was obedient and didn't go out to ruin our Feng family's reputation, I would be thankful. In the end, look at what she did. She got pregnant at such a young age, and she doesn't even know who the father of the child is. Sending her to the countryside to raise the child was to protect her reputation, and also to let her get some training to see if she could become smarter. Who knew that she would actually leave just like that, and not even send a message back? Did she even treat us as a family? Tell me, what kind of child did you give birth to? She's just an ingrate. But father, this can't be entirely blamed on Xiao Wu. The village Xiao Wu lived in was so bad that it was ransacked by bandits. It's already not easy for her to survive. Madame Lan, who was also the wife of the Feng family's patriarch, Lan Xiaodai, wiped her tears in grievance. The more she thought about her daughter, the more her heart ached. Her daughter didn't inherit her talent in magic, nor did she inherit the Feng family's talent as a swordsman. Although no one in the Feng family cared whether she had talent or not, outsiders didn't think so. Every time Xiao Wu was hurt by the rumors outside, Madame Lan's heart ached. Later, his daughter mysteriously got pregnant. Xiao Wu couldn't even tell who the father of the child was. The old man used the excuse that Xiao Wu was ruining the family's reputation and sent Xiao Wu to a small village. Although the old man said that he would expel Xiao Wu from the Feng family, he didn't do so in the end. She had originally planned to wait for Xiao Wu to finish her confinement and bring her back 2 years later. She hadn't expected such a tragic incident to happen. She had thought that Xiao Wu wouldn't survive, so she hid in her room and cried for more than a month. It wasn't easy for her to hear from the old man that not only was her Xiao Wu alive, but she had also entered the Notre Dame du Starlight. At the time, she had been so happy. She had thought that after a few months, the old man would put in a few good words for Xiao Wu on account of Xiao Wu's survival. She hadn't expected such a thing to happen again. Her poor Xiao Wu, when would she be able to come home again? The more Madame Lan thought about her daughter, the sadder she felt. Her handkerchief was soaked from crying. Feng Juntian held Madame Lan's weak shoulders and comforted her silently. "Father, is there some misunderstanding? Xiao Wu only likes." Feng Tianxing didn't finish his sentence. Everyone in the Feng family knew that Feng Wu had a crush on Feng Juentian's good friend, Qiu Ruabai. This matter wasn't a secret in the Feng family. No matter who she likes, the news of her public proposal has already spread throughout the Notre Dame du Starlight. This was personally said by the old vice principal. As long as Feng Wuliu lost face in front of his old rival, he couldn't wait to stuff that disappointing granddaughter of his into her mother's womb and remake her. It was precisely because the vice principal said it that it was even more untrustworthy. Who didn't know that the vice principal and his old man didn't like each other? Moreover, the vice principal had a personality that wished for the world to be in chaos. It was fine to only listen to half of what the vice principal said. But with Xiao Wu's personality, for her to confess and propose in front of so many students, this is too. Madame Lan said softly. It was inconceivable, wasn't it? Although Feng Wu's personality was somewhat extreme and cynical, she was still a very shy girl. If she really dared to confess in front of everyone, why would she have a crush on the son of the Qiu family, and not dared to confess for more than 10 years? In the end, when she finally confessed her feelings, she only dared to write a love letter, and didn't even dare to open her mouth. Regarding this point, everyone in the Feng family could think of it. However, Feng Wuliu was now so angry that he had lost his rationality. Or rather, he couldn't be bothered to think so much. After being reminded, Feng Wuliu also seemed to have thought of this point, and didn't continue this topic. After scolding his son, daughter-in-law and grandson, he mercifully let everyone leave. Madame Lan followed beside Feng Tianxing and hesitated to ask her husband to bring her daughter back. Xiao Wu had never suffered since she was young. Now that she was studying alone in another city and it was already the holidays, she had nowhere to go. What should she do? Xiao Dai, go back to your room first. Tian'er, come with me to the study. Feng Tianxing didn't turn back to look at his wife, and directly walked towards the study after saying this. Madame Lan sighed. It looked like she could only wait for another opportunity. Tian'er, you should persuade your father. Your younger sister is alone outside and doesn't even have a place to stay. She has never suffered since she was young and has experienced so many things. I believe that Xiao Wu has also learned her lesson, and will definitely change in the future. You should persuade your father to let your younger sister come back. Mother's heart feels terrible. As Madame Lan spoke, she started crying again. The handkerchief that hadn't dried yet became wet again. Feng Juntian nodded stiffly, and turned around to follow his father into the study. Feng Tianxing looked at his handsome and tall son, and then thought about his daughter. He wondered more than once if there was a problem with his way of educating his daughter. Otherwise, how could his daughter grow up to be so crooked? He had clearly used the same method to educate his child, and was more lenient with Xiao Wu, who was a girl. He didn't expect that child to grow up to be so crooked. She didn't even have the bearing of a legitimate daughter of the Feng family. Father, you called me over for something? Seeing that his father didn't speak for a long time, and only stared at him in a daze, Feng Juntian had no choice but to ask after enduring for a few minutes. Contact your younger sister and see how she is doing. Does she lack anything? Does she have enough money? 20 gold coins a month is a little too little. You can give her more depending on the situation. You are her elder brother, So you should take good care of your younger sister. Remember to contact your younger sister personally later, and don't let anyone else do it for you. Feng Tianxing was really not used to saying such words of concern. The men of the Feng family were not good at expressing themselves. It was already not easy for them to say such words of concern. Yes, Juntian understands. Feng Juntian looked at his father's back. When he spoke, his father deliberately turned his back to him. He suspected that his father was shy. If he didn't see wrongly, his father's ears seemed to have turned red. Since you know, you can leave. Remember to get things done as soon as possible. Feng Tianxing waved his hand and sent his son out without even looking back. Feng Juntian walked back to his room alone. His thoughts were a little messy. Thinking of his younger sister, Feng Wu, Feng Juntian frowned. His younger sister wasn't close to him since they were young. Among his friends, other than a few, most didn't know that he had a younger sister, Feng Wu. Chapter 178. Feng Wu's personality was a bit extreme. She had never been close to her brother. Every time they met, the scene would be cold and cheerless. When others were showing off their little sister, he could only remain silent. He and Xiao Wu were like strangers living in the same house. He didn't know what Xiao Wu liked or what she liked to eat. His understanding of Xiao Wu was even inferior to that of Feng Ting, who was born of a concubine. In the eyes of his friends, it seemed that Feng Ting was the young miss of the Feng family. His only sister was Feng Wu. Because she didn't like to appear in front of others, her presence was too weak. Most people had already forgotten about her. Even he, her brother, was used to ignoring her. Could it be that he was partly responsible for her becoming like that in the end? It seemed like he was really a failure as her brother. Taking out the communication crystal, Feng Juntian picked it up and put it down a few times. In the end, he finally made up his mind to use the communication crystal to contact Feng Wu. Feng Wu didn't have much to do recently. After listening to Feng Wu's story, the children ran out to play on their own. Feng Wu could only stay at home and read. As for what book she was reading, it was the popular romance novel, The Story of Me and the Sword God, that Tianyu had enthusiastically recommended. Just from the name, it was obvious that the male lead of this book was definitely a sword god. This sword god's name was Skycliff. That's right, it was that Skycliff from the Notre Dame du Starlight Mingxi team. Although Skycliff didn't talk much, he was a very famous young talent on the continent. At such a young age, he was favored by many sword masters. They all said that he was the man with the most hope of becoming a sword god. Skycliff's reputation among the younger generation was resounding. He was also favored by the older generation, so he naturally became one of the most popular young talents on the continent. He was also the dream lover of many girls. In the eyes of those girls, his indifference was called having character. His lack of reaction to women was called self-respect. Only having the way of the sword in his heart was also called having ambition. In short, in the eyes of those girls, Skycliff was a young man who looked cold on the outside, but was passionate on the inside. He was ambitious and had a strong background. In the eyes of those girls, he was a 100% diamond-level tortoise. The main plot of this book revolves around Skycliff and a noble man. You didn't read wrong, it's a man, not a woman. This book was a romantic novel. The young noble in the book was extremely talented, but unfortunately he was envied by the direct descendants of the family. In the end, the young noble left in anger and went on an adventure on the continent by himself. Skycliff, on the other hand, was severely injured during a training and was saved by that young man. From then on, the two of them started an ambiguous relationship. Mingxi, on the other hand, was a great man who loved Skycliff and sacrificed himself for the sake of Skycliff and that young man. This book had climax after climax, and the plot was compact. Overall, it was a relatively good book. It was no wonder that it was so popular. Feng Wu finished the book in the shortest time possible after reading for 4 hours straight. She looked a lot more serious, and her face showed that she was thinking about something important. Tianyu was curious. She walked to Feng Wu's side and sat down. Xiao Wu, what's wrong with you? Are you bored? Why don't we go out for a walk? I don't feel like going. Feng Wu shook her head. She was very busy now, and she was thinking about a very important problem. What's wrong with you? Did you encounter something unhappy? Tell me, sister will give you some advice. Tianyu was not that old, and because she didn't want to be called old, she asked Fengwu to call her sister. Sister Tianyu, Mingxi likes men. What should I do? Fengwu looked at Tianyu, bit her lip, and asked carefully. Fengwu wanted Mingxi to be Xiao Wu's father, but now she suddenly found that Xiao Ye's future father might run away with a man. This made Xiao Wu feel a little overwhelmed. Could it be that she was thinking about Mingxi, the person she was thinking about? Tianyu had a headache. Did this girl think that novels were reality? It had to be said that Tianyu was right. This was Fengwu's first time reading a romance novel. Previously, when she read books in the library, she also read literature books that were helpful for her studies. This was the first time she came into contact with a romance novel like this. So this girl didn't know that these novels were just the product of some people's imagination. She thought that something really happened between Mingxi and Skycliff. Xiao Wu, this is. Just as she was about to say that this was a novel, and that there was no need to treat it seriously, Fengwu suddenly took out a communication crystal from her spatial ring. This communication crystal was originally with the original owner. After Fengwu obtained her spatial ring, she had always kept it in her spatial ring and rarely took it out. Just as she was talking to Tianyu, she felt a strange movement in her spatial ring. Fengwu instinctively took out the stone that caused the movement and stared at it curiously. The stone emitted a gentle white light, and then the image of a handsome black-haired man appeared on the communication crystal. The image wasn't big, but it was enough to see the man's figure and appearance. Xiao Wu, long time no see. How have you been? Feng Juntian used his usual cold voice to greet Fengwu. Only he knew how nervous he was. Who are you? Fengwu's face was expressionless as she looked at Feng Juntian in the image. She didn't even call him by his name now. In the past, Xiao Wu would always refuse to call him Big Brother, and would always call him by his name. Even after being corrected by her parents many times, she still refused to call him Big Brother. But now, she didn't even call him Big Brother, and directly asked who he was. Could it be that Xiao Wu didn't want to acknowledge him anymore? Feng Juntian couldn't tell what he was feeling, only that his heart was filled with panic. I'm Big Brother, Feng Juntian said with some difficulty. Big Brother? You're Big Brother. The first thing that came to Feng Wu's mind was those little girls who had older brothers at the foot of Mount Yuehua. Those girls' older brothers always helped those girls to make trouble for her. Now that she had an older brother, would this older brother also play with her and help her no matter what happened, just like those children's older brothers? Hello Big Brother, I'm Fengwu. Xiao Wu was a little happy. She also had a big brother, so she was very happy. What she wanted to do the most now was to bring her big brother to those little girls who bullied her in the past, and then loudly tell those children that she also had a big brother. Did this mean that they were getting to know each other again? Did this mean that Xiao Wu wanted to let go of the past? If that was the case, then they should get to know each other again. Most importantly, Xiao Wu called him Big Brother so well that it made his heart melt. Hello Xiao Wu, I'm your big brother, Feng Juntian. Feng Juntian realized that he was very nervous. He had never been so nervous in his life. Chapter 179. After the self-introductions, the siblings fell into silence. They looked at each other, but neither of them spoke. Feng Juntian wondered if he should find something to talk about. It wasn't easy for his little sister to call him Big Brother, so he wanted to talk to her more. But no matter how he thought about it, he didn't know what to say. Although he had two little sisters at home, they always found things to talk about on their own. They had never asked him to take the initiative to do so. This was the first time he had encountered such a situation, so he was a little confused. Xiao Wu, have a chat with your brother. You haven't seen each other in such a long time, so you should have a lot to talk about. Tianyu sat at the side and couldn't bear to watch any longer. He was Xiao Wu's brother indeed. The siblings were both silent and had the same paralyzed expression. What do you want to talk about? Fengwu turned her head, her eyes wide open. Tianyu sighed inwardly with a headache and said, You can tell your brother about what happened to you at school, and what you want to ask. Fengwu understood and nodded. She turned to look seriously at the figure in the video. I want to help Little Bun find a father. Why won't he agree? Little Bun is clearly very cute and fun to play with. The girl's voice was filled with grievance. She couldn't understand why Mingxi wouldn't agree to her proposal. Before returning to school, Fengwu had actually proposed to Mingxi again. The scene at the time was like this: on the bustling street, a young man and a young woman stood quietly by the side. The young man's alluring face and the young woman's beautiful little face became a beautiful scenery on the street. Beside the young man and woman stood several handsome men and beautiful women of different styles. It was truly a group with off-the-charts good looks. Instantly, countless people turned their heads to look at them from time to time. The people standing there were Mingxi and Fengwu's group. After returning to Central City, Zicheng had used some excuse to leave with Eve and Rika. Fengwu and the others were also saying goodbye to Mingxi's group. Seniors, will meet again at school. Ajur waved at the seniors. I hope we'll meet again in the future, seniors of Notre Dame du Starlight. This was Pei Qing and the other two. We'll definitely meet again. Elena nodded at the three with a smile. Return to school early. You're still freshmen. It's not good to be absent for too long. Arguros. Ajur led the other members of the expert team to say goodbye to the seniors of Mingxi team. Fengwu, on the other hand, kept staring at Mingxi without blinking. Mingxi was forced to stare at the girl for a full 10 minutes. In the end, he couldn't take it anymore. He coughed softly and said, Xiaowu, do you have something to tell me? Do you have a cold? Fengwu finally spoke. As soon as she spoke, everyone else stopped talking. They were waiting to watch the show between the two of them. No, it's just that my throat is a little dry. I'll be fine after drinking some water. Mingxi could only find an excuse to explain. Here's some water. Fengwu took out a water bottle from her space ring. Her eyes were bright as she handed the water bottle to Mingxi. Her little face was full of anticipation. She looked like a cute puppy waiting for its owner to stroke its fur. Mingxi was shocked by his own imagination. He really couldn't tell Fengwu that he didn't want to drink water. He couldn't say no, so he took the water bottle. He wanted to take a sip and then hand it back. He didn't expect the girl in front of him to keep staring at him. The anticipation in her eyes was so obvious that anyone who wasn't blind could understand what she wanted to express. Was he trying to make him drink all the water? Should he drink it or drink it or drink it? Under such a gaze, it would be like committing a crime if he didn't finish the water. Mingxi had no choice but to finish the water bottle in one go. When he finished the water bottle, he was about to say thank you. He didn't expect another bottle to be handed to him. The corner of Mingxi's mouth twitched. If he hadn't known this girl for a while and knew how honest she was, he would have thought that he was being pranked. Elena and the others didn't mind watching the show. They were all excited to see Mingxi suffer. To make Mingxi, who was always smiling, show such an expression, girl, you're really not an ordinary person. Our seniors have high hopes for you. Fengwu's little face was full of anticipation. Her little expression was so cute that it made people unable to refuse. Also, with those big watery eyes, Mingxi suspected that if he dared to refuse, this girl would immediately cry in front of him. After taking the water bottle, Mingxi finished it again. When Fengwu took out the third water bottle, Mingxi resisted the danger of making Fengwu cry, and decisively refused to be stuffed to death by the water. I've had enough. I'm not thirsty anymore. You can keep it and drink slowly. Not sure if it was an illusion, Elena and the others clearly felt that Mingxi's gentle and tolerant smile was slightly distorted. I have a lot. This is for you. Fengwu insisted on handing the water bottle to Mingxi until Mingxi helplessly took it. In order to make Mingxi believe that she had a lot of water to drink, this girl took out more than 10 bottles of water from her spatial ring. Everyone was silent. Girl, you're not planning to go to the desert to train, are you? Why did you bring so much water with you? Xiaowu, what did you want to say to me just now? Mingxi did not want to talk about water anymore, so he could only change the topic. Fengwu did not know that Mingxi wanted to change the topic. She obediently put away the water bottle, then stared at Mingxi for a full minute before saying, "Please marry me." Mingxi thought of many possibilities, but he did not expect Fengwu to stare at him for so long just to say this. Not only did Ming Shi not expect this, even Elena, Ajur, and the others did not expect this. They all thought that Feng Wu had long forgotten about the matter of proposing to Ming Shi. They did not expect this girl to still not give up. There were so many people here, which one of them was not smart. They all felt that the way Feng Wu looked at Ming Shi was not like how one would look at a lover. Her eyes were very clean and pure, but there was no love in them. Instead, there was a deep attachment. It was as if she saw another person through Ming Shi. Others might not be able to understand this feeling. At most, they could tell that Feng Wu did not love Ming Shi, but Ming Shi could feel that Feng Wu's eyes were always looking at another person's figure through him. He thought of the love letter Feng Wu wrote to him. It said that he looked like her master. At the time he laughed it off, but he somewhat understood who Feng Wu saw through him. Chapter 180. Xiao Wu, why must you marry me? You're still young. A girl of your age is still a half-grown child. It's still too early for you to get married. Ming Shi admitted that he had a good impression of Feng Wu. Anyone would have a good impression of such a pure and almost transparent girl. But right now, it was just a good impression. It couldn't be considered love or anything like that. Moreover, as he said himself, Feng Wu was really too young. At most, she was only 15 years old. At such a young age, it was a little too early to say that she was getting married. He even suspected that Feng Wu really knew the meaning of marriage. Because you're like my master. Master said that if I want to get married in the future, I must find a good man like him. Feng Wu used a soft and sweet voice to honestly say the words that her master had used to trick her back then. The group of experts instantly felt several black lines slide down their foreheads. Young lady, can you not be so honest? The few of them carefully looked at Ming Shi's expression. No one would be happy to hear that the reason for their marriage proposal was because of an elder who looked like this young lady. Sure enough, Ming Shi's mouth twitched a few times. His eyes seemed to reveal a deep sense of helplessness and understanding. I'm sorry, Xiao Wu. I still have to reject you. Oh. Just when everyone thought that Feng Wu would be upset, she only nodded calmly. There wasn't even a trace of disappointment on her face. Ming Shi didn't want to continue the topic of marriage proposal. After saying goodbye to Feng Wu and the others, he immediately left with his people. When he left, his footsteps were a little messy and he walked a few steps faster than usual. Although he still looked so elegant, no matter how you looked at it, it looked like he was running away. And then, the last time they met last semester, the proposal ended in failure. From the day they parted outside the school, they didn't even see each other in school until the end of the semester. Feng Juntian didn't know who his sister wanted to propose to, even though his grandfather had told him that his sister had boldly proposed to a classmate in school. However, Feng Juntian didn't believe her. He knew Feng Wu's personality very well. She would never propose to someone in public. Thus, after hearing Feng Wu's words, Feng Juntian decisively misunderstood. He took a deep breath and looked at Feng Wu in the video awkwardly. It wasn't easy for him to reconcile with his sister. He really didn't want to pour cold water on his sister, but there were some things that if he didn't let Feng Wu understand, she would only be hurt more in the future. Xiao Wu, I know you only have Ruabai in your heart, but you and Ruabai are really not suitable. Brother believes that in the future, you will definitely find a man who truly loves you. He deliberated over and over again, using the least hurtful words he could think of to express his meaning. Originally, Feng Juntian thought that Feng Wu would be hurt and throw a tantrum after hearing these words. He didn't expect her to be so calm that it was somewhat abnormal. He saw Feng Wu use a pair of large black eyes to look at her brother. Then with a stoic face she asked in a puzzled voice, "Who is Ruabai?" "You don't know Ruabai?" Feng Juntian was shocked. He was very clear about how much his sister liked Qiu Ruabai. For Qiu Ruabai, she had done many crazy things, but now his sister was actually using such a puzzled expression to ask him who Ruabai was. If one had to describe Feng Juntian's current feeling, it would be as if he had been struck by lightning. He was completely stupefied. Why do I have to know him? Was this Ruabai someone important? After searching through her memories, Feng Wu couldn't remember knowing such a person. She furrowed her small brows. She was clearly talking about the proposal, So why did she talk about this Ruabai? Also, who was Ruabai? What did it have to do with him? Fengwu blinked her large eyes in puzzlement. 3 words were written all over her small face. She didn't understand. You don't need to know. You don't need to know who he is. He's just an unimportant person. Regardless of whether Xiaowu had really forgotten or was pretending to forget to heal her emotional wound, he didn't plan to continue talking about it. It couldn't be better if Fengwu wanted to forget about Ruabai. Brother, you still haven't answered me. Why won't he agree to marry me? What about the father who won't be a little bun? Fengwu couldn't understand why. Her brother seemed to be very smart, so her brother should know why Mingxi wouldn't agree to marry her. If Feng Juntian knew that his sister had placed such heavy hopes on him, she really didn't know how he would react. For a moment, Feng Juntian didn't know how to answer his sister. His sister seemed to have encountered some emotional troubles, and this man wasn't her good friend Qiu Ruabai. He should be happy, but he was also very worried. Could it be that his sister had suffered a huge blow from Ruabai, so she wanted to find a random man to date? Xiaowu, brother thinks that you're still young. It's better to wait a few years before considering marriage, Feng Juntian said in a deadpan manner. Sister Tianyua said before that Xiaowu is already a mother, so I'm an adult. Fengwu blinked her eyes, looking at Feng Juntian with a serious expression. Fengwu had always thought so. Master always said that a biological child was an adult. She wasn't married, but she had a child, so she should be an adult. Sister Tianyua also said so it couldn't be wrong. Xiaowu was an adult. The girl thought expressionlessly in her heart, secretly confirming her identity as an adult. Feng Juntian suddenly had a feeling of speechlessness. Xiaowu was indeed a mother. For a woman who was a mother, it was too far-fetched to insist that she was a child. Because he didn't know how to deal with his sister's problem, Feng Juntian used the excuse of helping Fengwu find a way to successfully propose, and closed the communication crystal as quickly as possible. On the other side, Fengwu was in a very good mood and the corner of her mouth twitched. Brother said that he would think of a way. Once her brother figured it out, Senior Ming she would definitely agree to marry her. Thinking like this, the girl's mood immediately soared. She clearly had high hopes for her brother, and she never thought that her brother might be tricking her. At this time in the Feng family, the brother that his sister had placed high hopes on was sitting in a daze in his room. As a man with zero experience in love, and even holding hands with girls was limited to his sister, Feng Juntian was under a lot of pressure. After closing his eyes and thinking for a full 5 minutes, he finally moved. With steady steps, Feng Juntian walked straight into his mother's room. Madame Lan was currently sitting in her room with a worried expression, wiping away her tears in front of the mirror. From time to time, she would wonder if her daughter was doing well, and if she would starve. Her daughter had been spoiled since she was young and had never suffered. It was already very difficult for her to live alone. If she had to raise a child, wouldn't that be adding fuel to the fire? Chapter 181. Madame Lan cried as she worried. She couldn't stop her tears, and her handkerchief was so wet that it looked like it could drip water. Madam, you don't have to worry too much. Isn't young Miss already a student of Notre Dame du Starlight? I believe she can take care of herself. This woman who was busy comforting Madame Lan was no stranger to Fengwu. She was Qing Lian, who had taken care of Fengwu for a period of time. Because Qing Lian had been brought back by the Feng clan elder, she had managed to avoid the massacre of the village. Back then, the Feng clan elder had done this to let Fengwu learn to be independent and change her spoiled temper. He hadn't expected that something would happen in the village that day. After Qing Lian found out that the village had been massacred, she cried with Madame Lan for a long time. Only when she confirmed that Fengwu had arrived at Central City and had become a student of Notre Dame du Starlight did she truly relax. Qing Lian was right when Feng Juntian arrived. Qing Lian's eyes lit up when she saw Feng Juntian. Eldest young master, you're here. Hurry and persuade Madame. What if Madame continues crying like this? It'll hurt her eyes. Aunt Lian, you can leave first. I'll talk to Mother. Feng Juntian was very similar to the Feng clan elder. They both didn't like weak women, but his mother was a woman who was as gentle as water. In Feng Juentian's impression, his mother's greatest hobby was crying. When she was in a good mood, she would cry. When she was in a bad mood, she would cry. When she heard about sad things, she would cry. When she saw a tragic scene in a novel, she would cry. He remembered that when he was young, he had learned sword skills from his grandfather. At that time, he would be covered in wounds every day. His mother would always cry as she applied medicine for him. Later on, he was scared by his mother's tears and didn't dare let his mother see his wounds anymore. His grandfather always said that he hoped that his sister wouldn't be like his mother. Their Feng family's girls couldn't cry so easily. He had never understood why his father, who had grown up under his grandfather's teachings, would fall in love with a woman like his mother, who was like water. He had heard that the love between his father and mother had encountered some obstacles, but fortunately, his grandfather was not an inflexible old man. In the end, he had agreed to his parents' marriage. After so many years, his mother's heart was still as sentimental as a young girl's. However, his father didn't mind and liked his mother very much. As a son, Feng Juntian naturally couldn't raise any objections to his parents. After Qinglian left, Madame Lan seemed to have suddenly thought of something and stopped crying. Her eyes were red as she held her son's hand, looking a little emotional. Tian, or what did your father say to you? Did I ask you to bring your sister back? Am I right? Am I right? Feng Juntian suspected that if he dared to say no, his mother would definitely start raining cats and dogs. Mother, I have something to ask you. Feng Juntian said expressionlessly with a stoic face. Madame Lan was stared at by her son's stoic face, and forgot all her questions. What is it? This son of hers was usually taught by Feng Wuliu and Feng Tianxing. Feng Wuliu was afraid that she would teach his son to be a weakling who wouldn't be able to inherit the Feng family in the future. Thus, he had never allowed him to interfere with his son's education. In her impression, her son was very capable and could solve any problem by himself. If he couldn't solve it, he would only ask his father or grandfather. This was the first time she had heard that her son had something to ask her. This made Madame Lan instantly wonder if she had heard wrongly, or if she had not woken up yet. Mother, I want to know how to make a man agree to marry a woman. In the Feng family, only his mother would be infatuated with those romance novels. Thus, in Feng Juentian's heart, his mother, who had read so many romance novels, should be able to tell him the answer. Ah! Madame Lan's eyes widened in shock. Could it be? Tina, you've finally fallen in love. Her voice changed because of her excitement. It's not me. I'm asking on behalf of a friend. He didn't dare to say that he was asking on behalf of Fengwu. He was afraid that his mother, who had an unusually strong mind, would think too much. Perhaps she would run to Notre Dame du Starlight to look for her sister if she couldn't figure it out. So that's how it is. How disappointing. I thought that Tian had reached the point where he wanted to find a girlfriend. She thought that Sun Mu was finally enlightened, but it turned out that she had been happy for nothing. Feng Juentian's mouth twitched imperceptibly. Mother, do you have any good suggestions? Your friend is a girl? Madame Lan finally remembered that her son's question seemed to be for a girl. But did her son have any female friends? It seemed that the younger sisters of her son's best friends counted. Could it be that those girls had their eyes on a boy, but didn't know how to pursue him? Seeing his mother's eyes grow brighter and brighter, Feng Juntian could practically imagine what his mother was imagining. If that girl doesn't have any love experience, I strongly recommend this book, Chasing a Prince Charming 99 Times, and this The Diary of a Chaser. These two books are currently the best-selling novels about girls chasing boys. If you still feel that it's not enough, you can also read this 101 Ways to Woo a Goddess. Although it's a textbook about chasing a girl, many of the methods in it can be used to chase boys as well. When your friend finishes reading these 3 books, she will definitely be able to handle that boy. I'll give the books to you and teach them to the girl so that she can read them slowly. Consider this a gift from Auntie. If you knew that these books were for your daughter, are you sure you would still give them to her? Feng Juntian thought silently in his heart. There's no need, Mother. She's not here. These books are sold everywhere. Let her go to a bookstore and buy one herself. Madame Lan had wanted to give the books to show her support for that girl, But she couldn't give it away. Helpless, she gave the books to her son, reasoning that her son might meet a girl he liked in the future. When that time came, he could use the methods described in the books to pursue that girl. Feng Juntian didn't know what to say anymore. He took the 3 books that he definitely didn't know how to read, and went straight back to his room to contact Fengwu. After telling Fengwu the names of the 3 books, Feng Juntian heaved a sigh of relief. Although he knew that Xiaowu was still too young and shouldn't fall in love and get married too early, he just couldn't say no to those clear eyes of hers. How come he never knew that Xiaowu's eyes were so beautiful? Just one look from her was enough to melt his heart as an older brother. Meanwhile, far away in Central City, Fengwu received Feng Juntian's communication request and found out the names of the 3 books from him. After Fengwu hung up, she immediately left the little bun in Little White's care and went out to buy the books alone. Chapter 182. After buying 3 best-selling books from the bookstore, Fengwu began a serious life of reading books. After memorizing all the methods to chase after a man and a woman mentioned in the books, Fengwu began to worry again. Where was Senior Mingxi? The coincidental encounters mentioned in the books included giving flowers. This was what she saw in the novel about chasing after a woman. Giving precious jewelry. This was also what she saw in the novel about chasing after a woman. All kinds of compliments. This was also what she saw in the novel about chasing after a woman. And finding an opportunity to go through thick and thin with the other party. Finally, there was a plot that she saw in the novel about chasing after a man. Blocking a sword for the other party. Novel about chasing after a man, not abandoning the male protagonist when he was in a difficult situation. This was needless to say, silent care and comfort, and many other methods that she saw in the books. How to implement when there was no male protagonist, asking for explanations, asking for help, and all kinds of other things. Fengwu didn't know what to do, so she could only use the communication crystal that Ajur gave her to stop harassing her good friend. Xiaowu. Ajur didn't expect that Xiaowu would think of looking for him in just a few days after they separated. He always thought that with little Fengwu's personality, even if they didn't contact each other during the holidays, she wouldn't have any reaction. Ajur, what should I do if I can't find Senior Mingxi? Fengwu looked at Ajur with a wronged expression. Her pitiful appearance made her look like some kind of small animal, making people want to stroke her fur. Ajur suppressed the urge to pat the girl's little head, and seriously helped Fengwu think about it. Then he came up with a more reliable idea. Xiaowu, go to the virtual realm. During the holidays, Senior Mingxi might go home. When he's at home, he'll definitely go to the virtual realm to cultivate. You might be able to meet Senior Mingxi there. In fact, Ajur was just guessing. He wasn't sure if Mingxi had accepted a mission from the school or gone home. In order to stop Fengwu from looking at him with such a wronged expression, he had no choice but to come up with this idea. At worst, if she didn't meet Mingxi, he would say that the virtual realm was too big and let her search in peace. By the time she did that, the holidays would be over. This was a great idea. How could he be so smart? The virtual realm? How? Fengwu blinked, her eyes filled with innocence. After teaching Fengwu the way to sense the virtual realm, Fengwu finally hung up the communication crystal, satisfied. On the other side of the communication crystal, Ajur sat silently at the head of the bed, staring blankly at the communication crystal. That heartless brat actually hung up on him. After learning the way to find Mingxi, Fengwu told Tianyu about it. Then, she handed the little bun over to Little White, and ran into the room alone to sense the door to the virtual realm. The method Ajur told Fengwu was very simple. As long as she emptied her mind and connected her mind to the sensory stone, she would be able to sense the door to the virtual realm. Then, her mind would leave her body and transform into another person to enter the virtual realm. When the other person formed by the mind went into the virtual realm, the physical body in the outside world would be protected by the sensory stone. If there was any danger, the mind would be forcefully pulled out of the door to the virtual realm. Although Ajur made it sound simple, the first time sensing the virtual realm was actually the most difficult. It required a lot of concentration. An average person would need a few hours to sense the door to the virtual realm. Some people would even need a day. Fortunately, This situation would only occur during the first time. After the first time, this situation would not occur again. In the future, as long as one's mind entered the sensory stone, they would be able to enter the virtual realm. Fengwu followed Ajur's method and successfully connected to the virtual realm for the first time in just a few minutes. This was really an amazing result. If the teachers knew about this, their jaws would definitely drop. Although the time taken to connect to the virtual realm for the first time was different for everyone, with some taking longer and some taking shorter, and most people would spend a few hours. Even the shortest known time to successfully connect to the virtual realm was half an hour. For someone like Fengwu to connect to the virtual realm in just a few minutes was unheard of, let alone seen. When Fengwu successfully connected to the virtual realm, she felt that her consciousness seemed to have entered a strange place. She came to a long crystal wall tunnel. In front of the tunnel was an open door. Behind the door was a white light, and it was impossible to see what was behind it. At this time, there were many people moving forward in the tunnel. Their goal was very similar. The door in front of them. Old 4, how's the mission? Did you complete it? Don't talk about it. I was unlucky and got killed. I wasted a mind power recovery potion to come back here. Don't let me find the bastard who shot me in the back. I'll kill him 10 times over if I find him. Aliyah, you changed into a new outfit. It's so pretty. A girl's envious voice rang out. Of course it's pretty. This is the work of Master Ivan, one of the top 100 sewing masters in the virtual realm. How can it not be pretty? The girl said proudly. It must be very expensive. Of course, I spent a total of 500 gold coins to buy it. Do you want to form a party to kill a boss later? Of course, of course. Which boss? Zhu Tai. Fengwu followed the group forward with a poker face. Along the way, she kept hearing these words that she didn't understand. Fengwu's face was still expressionless. In her heart, one word was written, dumbfounded. If Irene was here and heard these people talking, she would definitely cry out in surprise. This was the rhythm of an online game. When the group walked through the door, the scene in front of Fengwu immediately changed. In front of her was a small village. The village was peaceful and quiet. A large group of people wearing coarse clothes like her came and went hurriedly in front of her. Fengwu couldn't understand what was going on. Although she didn't understand what these people were doing, Fengwu knew that she was now in the virtual realm. But how was she going to find Mingxi? Before she knew it, Fengwu stood at the entrance of the village in a daze for a full quarter of an hour. A beautiful girl with black hair stood alone at the entrance of the village. Passers-by would turn to look at her from time to time, trying to guess what this girl wanted to do by standing there. Mariana was the third daughter of the main branch of the family. She was extremely talented. She was a dual-element magician of the metal and fire element. This kind of talent made her highly valued in the family. Moreover, she had obtained a top-grade sensory stone, which allowed her to enter the virtual realm to improve her strength. She had only obtained the stone not long ago, so she spent her days in the novice village. To her, the virtual realm was a world full of challenges and unknowns. If it weren't for the fact that staying in the virtual realm affected her body in the outside world, she wouldn't have minded staying in there forever. Chapter 183. 5 minutes ago, she had just completed a mission from the village chief, which was to find his naughty grandson. As soon as she handed in the mission, she was attracted by Fengwu, who was standing at the entrance of the village. Miliana believed that her memory was excellent. She had done 2 tasks, but the girl was still standing here, which made her a little curious, so she approached Fengwu to see what made the girl stand at the entrance of the village in a daze. Aside from the students of Notre Dame du Starlight, the only people who could come to the Mirage were the children of royalty and clans. The Mirage was a very good place to train people. Everyone who came here would work hard to improve their strength. Who would think of standing there in a daze? Hi, hello. Why are you standing here? Is there anything you need help with? I want to find someone, but I can't find him. Fengwu lowered her head in disappointment. She was really stupid. Ajur had already told her how to find Mingxi, but she still didn't know what to do. Fengwu was really as stupid as the children at the foot of the mountain said. Find someone? The person you want to find is also a newbie? Miljana finally understood. This should be the girl's first time in the mirage. She didn't know what was wrong with her parents. Why didn't they tell her about the mirage? Newbie? What was that? Fengwu looked up at Miljana. A newbie who just entered the ethereal plane not long ago. This is the novice village. Only newbies below level 10 will mingle around here. If your friend isn't a newbie, then he should have already gone to the main city. If you want to find him, you can only look for him there. Miljana saw that she had just completed 2 missions and now had some free time. So she pulled Fengwu to a big rock at the entrance of the village to chat. He shouldn't be a newbie, Fengwu said uncertainly. If he isn't a newbie, then he wouldn't be in the novice village. If you want to find him, then work hard to level up. Alright, do you know how to level up? Miljana wasn't looking down on the girl, but she looked like a fool. No matter how she looked at it, she didn't seem like she knew anything about the mirage. Fengwu lowered her head, revealing a black head. This meant that he didn't understand. Miljana thought to herself and came to the conclusion that this was a shy and sensitive. My child. Seeing that Fengwu didn't know anything, Miljana kindly told Fengwu some basic knowledge, and taught Fengwu how to open her backpack, and check the beginner's guide in the backpack. Alright, you've understood everything you need to understand. If you don't, you can look at the beginner's guide. I'm going to do a quest. You should go and accept a quest as well. Hurry up and reach level 10, so that you can leave the village and find your friends in the main city. Oh right, let me remind you, when you're doing quests, try your best to find quests that require you to kill monsters. If you want to do it, find a few more people. The monsters in this world are just as powerful as the ones in the real world. It's too difficult to fight them alone. Thinking about how powerful the monsters in the woods outside the village were, Miljana wanted to scratch her head. Those monsters were too powerful. Even if they gave more experience, she was just a level 5 noob. She couldn't beat those monsters. Her father also told her to challenge more monsters as it would be beneficial for her. Although she would not be thrown out of the ethereal plane after being killed by monsters in this world, and would only respawn at the respawn point. Dying at the hands of monsters would cause her to lose 1 level of experience. If she had not gone to challenge monsters several times and lost a few experience points, she would not have been stuck at level 5. The more she thought about it, the more miserable she felt. After exchanging names with Fengwu, Miljana ran back to the village to find an NPC to accept a quest. After parting ways with Miljana, Fengwu carefully read the beginner's guide. Finally, she had a general understanding of the mirage and knew what she should do. Fengwu looked up at the sky and made a decision. She wanted to level up. As the Fengwu girl secretly decided to level up and look for her husband, she didn't know that in 2 other beginners' villages, 2 of her acquaintances had also entered the mirage. Little Chung, you're too amazing. You actually got a perception stone. This is great. We can also enter the mirage to train. Eve was dressed in a beginner's robe. She looked energetic and didn't look depressed at all after being given a major demerit. Yeah, Little Chung, you're too amazing. Although she didn't get a perception stone was still good. Rika also knew that her relationship with Zicheng wasn't as good as Eve's, so she didn't feel dissatisfied. It's nothing. It just so happened that my friend had a perception stone, so I bought it. Of course, Zicheng didn't tell the truth. The perception stone in her hand was exchanged with favorability points. In her favorability system, there was nothing good, so the points needed to exchange for a perception stone weren't very high. She exchanged a perception stone for herself and Eve. Eve was the first person she recruited after coming to this world, so she naturally treated her better. As for Rika, her favorability points with Rika had reached more than 90. If she worked a little harder, it might reach 100. That was why she exchanged a perception stone for her. As expected, after Rika got the perception stone, her favorability points increased by another 2 points. After her favorability points reached 90, it was really hard to increase. Until now, the only person who had reached 100 favorability points was Eve. Zicheng had already made up her mind. She was going to increase her favorability points in this mirage. As for Irene, she was currently doing guild business in a novice village. Her choice was the same as most people, which was to run some simple errands and quickly reach level 10. She couldn't wait to see the world outside the novice village. This mirage created by Longza Gamer. She had to find out what was the difference between this virtual world and a holographic online game. Of course, the most important goal was to prevent the female lead from increasing her favorability points. Fengwu still didn't know that these 3 transmigrated girls from another world actually chose to log into the mirage on the same day. Their future days were going to be interesting. The fates of these 3 transmigrated women from different worlds seemed to involuntarily intersect with each other. In this virtual world created by the transmigrated man, the arrival of these 3 transmigrated women, just what kind of a storm would it bring about? At this time, somewhere in the deep sea, a huge magic seal was suppressing the bottom of the sea. Dark demonic energy floated up and down in the sea. It's here, it's finally here. The variable has appeared. Longza Gamer, how long do you think you can trap me? I'll be able to see the light of day soon. When that time comes, I'll definitely destroy the human world and wipe out the entire human race. Ha 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 ha. Chapter 184. Fengwu and the other 2 transmigrated girls didn't know that one of them had been targeted. The 3 of them were still doing their own quests. Fengwu arrived at the village chief's house. There were quite a few people accepting quests at the village chief's house. When Fengwu arrived, there was already a queue in front of her. In front of her, there were 5 people queuing up to accept quests. Respected village chief, is there anything I can do for you? A rather handsome young man dressed in a beginner's uniform looked at the village chief with respect. He had a fawning expression on his face. Young man, my family's pigsty needs to be cleaned. However, my wife and I are already old and can't do heavy work. We can only trouble you. The old village chief raised his wrinkled face and spoke to the man in front of him in a lethargic manner. The young man wearing the beginner's uniform twitched his mouth and silently cursed his bad luck. He rubbed his nose and admitted defeat. There were many quests that could be accepted in the beginner village, but most of them were limited. For example, Anna at the east of the village and Peter at the west of the village would only give out quests to each person 3 times a day. It was the same for the other families. The quests that they could help with running errands were also limited. It was impossible to do them indefinitely. The only quests in the village that didn't have a limit was the village chief's house. This made the village chief's house the most popular place in the entire beginner village. The quests that the village chief gave out were very simple, but also very troublesome. If it wasn't to clean the chicken coop, it was to clean the pigsty, it was to chop wood, do laundry, clean the house, and help the village chief find his playful grandson and lost cat and dog. While doing quests in the ethereal plane, one shouldn't think that doing quests in the game would be enough. The realism of the game was as high as 100%. The pain of being injured or killed was no different from the pain of being injured in the real world. Washing clothes, cooking, and cleaning really needed to be done by oneself. Moreover, it needed to be done well and clean well. If it wasn't done well and the natives were not satisfied, the quest would still be considered a failure. This was also why it was not easy to leave the beginner village. Those who could come to the Mirage were mostly talented or pampered young ladies and young masters who were spoiled at home. These people couldn't do the daily quests. Therefore, at the beginning the success rate of the quests was very low. It wasn't until they got used to it that the success rate of the quests started to increase. After the unlucky man who was assigned to clean the pigsty walked away, the second person was also assigned to clean the chicken coop. The third person was moved up. Fengwu took advantage of this time to observe the environment of the village chief's house. It was an ordinary farmhouse. Although the house looked better than the other houses in the village, it was still filled with a rustic atmosphere. It was much worse than the houses in the central city. However, it was a little similar to the small village Fengwu used to live in. The people in front were still busy accepting quests. Fengwu's gaze moved to a slightly plump woman. When Fengwu saw her, she used appraisal and easily found out the woman's identity. The result of appraisal was that the woman was the village chief's wife. At this time, the village chief's wife had a worried expression on her face. However, the people in the courtyard acted as if they didn't see her. They were either accepting quests or giving out quests. The village chief's wife sat alone in the courtyard with a worried expression. Fengwu pursed her lips. When she saw that there was only one person left, she moved in front of the village chief's wife and stared at her with her big black eyes. Do you need help? Fengwu felt that the village chief's wife seemed to be troubled. She probably needed help, so she asked subconsciously. When the village chief's wife heard Fengwu's question, her entire face lit up. Yes, I really need help. My new clothes were stolen by a fox outside the village. Those damn foxes hid my clothes on one of the foxes. Can you help me get them back? When the village chief's wife asked this question, Fengwu heard a voice in her ear. Respected adventurer, the village chief's wife asks you to help her find her new clothes that were stolen by a fox. Will you accept? Accept. Fengwu had heard from Miliana about the scene that would appear when accepting quests, so she wasn't surprised by the sudden appearance of this voice. She calmly accepted. Fengwu didn't notice that when she approached the village chief's wife, the people who came in with her to accept the quest were looking at her, as if she was a monster. What's wrong with that girl? She actually dared to accept this damn quest. She must be a newbie who doesn't understand the situation. If she knew what's going on, she wouldn't have jumped into the pit. She should have seen how many newbies the village chief's wife has tricked. That girl is so pitiful. I think she won't be able to level up for at least 3 days. The people lining up next to her all looked at Fengwu with pity. Fengwu had just entered the ethereal plane not long ago, so she naturally didn't know that the village chief's quests were notorious for being a scam. In the past, there were some newbies who didn't know better who wanted to accept the quest, but after accepting it, they realized that it was impossible to complete. For example, the quest to find the new clothes stolen by the fox had been accepted by no less than 10 people. In the end, those who accepted the quest formed a team and ran to the fox's den to be slaughtered by a group of foxes several times. Forget about the clothes, they didn't even get a single fox hair. However, there was a deceptive setting in the virtual realm. Once a player accepted a quest, they were not allowed to give up within 3 days. The village chief's wife's quest was even more deceptive. Before the player completed or gave up on the quest, they were not allowed to accept any more quests from the natives. This setting was only discovered by those who had been deceived. They immediately cried until they almost fainted. Could you be any more deceptive? Do you dare? Do you dare? After so many seniors used their blood and tears to summarize the 4 biggest quests that couldn't be accepted in the beginner village, no one dared to go to the village chief's wife to accept a quest. From then on, one could see an auntie who looked like she was going through menopause, sitting there and sighing. No one would have thought that today, on this very day, a cute little black-haired loli would actually be fooled. Not only was she fooled, she even accepted this extremely dangerous mission. With the little loli's appearance, if she could complete the mission, they would be willing to twist their heads off and let her sit on it. After Fengwu accepted the mission, she saw a small line of words appear in front of it. During the duration of this mission, she could not accept any other mission issued by other mission issuers. The duration of this mission was, there was no time limit. If you want to give up the mission, please wait 3 days before applying. After Fengwu finished reading in silence, she walked out of the village to look for the fox. Chapter 185. The foxes outside the village were easy to find. On the grassland outside the village, there was a large group of foxes. At this time, these little foxes were lying on the grass one by one, basking in the sun. They all looked very leisurely and did not take these passing adventurers seriously at all. As for the adventurers, they all stayed far away from these little things and did not want to get close to them unless it was absolutely necessary. The monsters in the novice village would not take the initiative to attack unless an adventurer attacked them first. Otherwise, these little monsters would not take the initiative to hurt people. Although these little guys looked petite and cute, in fact, each of them had a strong fighting power. Not to mention a one-on-one fight. Even if they teamed up to fight together, they would not be able to defeat these cute little guys. Fengwu walked alone to the territory of the foxes. Their appearance was similar to the common foxes on Earth. These little monsters were designed by Longza Gamer according to the animals in his memory. These little monsters were not real. They were not endowed with intelligence, and were just the most ordinary low-level magical beasts. As soon as Fengwu saw these little guys, she knew that she could not communicate with them because she could not feel their hearts. She wanted to find the village chief's wife's new clothes, which were hidden on one of the little foxes. Fengwu took out the novice weapon given by the Mirage Lord, a rusty iron sword. She tried to poke the little fox with the iron sword. It was just a gentle poke, but it was like poking a hornet's nest. The little fox, which was lying on the ground basking in the sun and looked lazy, instantly turned from a cute little thing into a ferocious big monster. They all had fierce eyes, bared their teeth and drooled. Their twisted hairy faces were full of murderous intent. The little foxes stared at Fengwu with fierce eyes, their claws fiercely digging the ground a few times, and then they jumped toward Fengwu to bite her. How painful it would be to be bitten by those sharp teeth. No wonder the people here would rather do those difficult tasks than to farm monsters. These monsters were really ferocious. With 100% realism, he believed that not many people would want to torture themselves and experience what it felt like to be bitten by a fox. Fengwu brandished her sword, and a set of falling flower sword technique was used by her to perfection. Those little foxes that pounced on Fengwu were unable to gain any advantage. The adventurers passing by in the distance were naturally very surprised when they saw this scene. No one would have thought that this black-haired little loli actually had such ferocious lethality. With the combination of the falling flower sword technique and windward willow leaf steps, those little foxes that took the initiative to attack were all taken care of by Fengwu. A pile of copper coins, furs and other materials fell on the ground. In the pile of materials, a woman's underwear was so obvious in the middle of the road. Fengwu calmly picked it up, and a line of words immediately appeared in front of her. The quest has been completed. The adventurer can return to the village head's wife to complete the quest. Fengwu's mood was very good as she put it back into her backpack, and went to find the village head's wife to receive the reward. Fengwu's level, because of killing so many foxes, unexpectedly rose to level 3 all of a sudden. This could be considered to be leveling up very quickly. In fact, the people in the novice village all knew that killing monsters to level up was much faster than doing quests. But they couldn't beat those ferocious beasts outside the village, so what could they do? They could only watch those little magical beasts that were raised outside the novice village live freely. And they had to painstakingly help those natives wash the toilets, clean the chicken coop, and the pigsty. There was simply nothing more miserable than this. They didn't know that the ethereal plane was originally a place to train people. How could it really be like online games where the monsters were easy to kill and give them experience? In the ethereal plane, all the monsters were designed according to the real magical beast's strength in the outside world. If they wanted to easily kill the monsters, sure, but they had to work hard to improve their strength. One day, they would be able to do it. At this time, Fengwu didn't know that after she left, there were a few adventurers who didn't believe in heresy at the place where the foxes lived. They thought that those little foxes weren't as strong as the legends said. If they were really that strong, how could they be so easily defeated by a little girl? Unfortunately, those few people used their own personal experience to tell everyone what it meant to seek death. They saw those few guys rush into the group of foxes, and just as they released a skill, they were killed by a group of foxes and sent back to the resurrection point. Those few people who didn't believe in heresy at this time called out in their hearts. Why did they have to be so cheap? Didn't they see that others were hiding far away? Why did they have to be heroes? Not to mention how regretful those people were in their hearts. A super realistic death experience was enough to make them suffer a lot. Those with a weaker heart would be so scared that they wouldn't be able to sleep for a few days. On the other hand, those who were watching from the side silently retracted their feet and patted their frightened little chests. It was too scary, wasn't it? It was too bloody. Fortunately, they were slow and didn't rush over in the first place. Otherwise, they would have been sent back to the resurrection point. Honorable adventurer, did you bring back my new clothes? The village chief's wife looked at Fengwu expectantly and asked. Fengwu nodded, and then took out a piece of underwear from her personal backpack. This was the new clothes, newly made underwear, that the village chief's wife threw away. You're really too strong, honorable adventurer. I must thank you properly. Your swordsmanship is so powerful, then I'll give you this sword. With this sword, your combat strength will definitely be stronger. The chubby village chief's wife smiled as she took out a black longsword. Fengwu received it expressionlessly, and then the sword's information appeared before her eyes. It turned out that this was a bronze-ranked longsword. It didn't have any other attributes, but it was much sharper than Fengwu's novice Ironsword Peak. However, this was enough for Fengwu. Fengwu received the weapon in a good mood, and said thank you to the village chief's wife. Honorable adventurer, my friend, Madame Luna, seems to have something on her mind recently. I think you should be able to help her. Can you help me see her? The village chief's wife's chubby face smiled amiably. Fengwu nodded and said okay, then accepted the quest to find Madame Luna. If Irene was here, she would definitely shout. This was actually a chain quest. Generally, this kind of quest would have good things at the end. And while Fengwu was doing this, Irene and Zicheng were busy with their own quests. Zicheng lived in a world that didn't have such things as virtual online games. She wasn't the kind of person who liked to read novels, so she didn't know much about virtual online games. Although she didn't understand virtual online games, she had played some ordinary mobile games and web games. After entering this world, Zicheng felt that this world was somewhat similar to a game. Therefore, she had some guesses in her heart, but she still couldn't be sure. Chapter 186. As for Irene, she was now very sure that this was a virtual world created using the virtual world as a foundation. In her previous life, she was a gaming veteran. She had played some of the more famous games. Although she had never played a real virtual game, she had read quite a few novels about it. She didn't believe that with her many years of gaming experience, she wouldn't be able to find a hidden quest. At this moment, Irene didn't know that sometimes, gaming experience could mislead people. Just like now, she didn't do anything proper. Instead, she went around looking for some inconspicuous natives to curry favor with. In the end, after pleasing them for half a day, she didn't get any benefits. After working hard for an entire day without any benefits, she decisively gave up and obediently went to do quests. Irene was also a ruthless person. When she received the quest to kill monsters and find items, she also accepted it and successfully completed it. She received a bronze staff and a follow-up quest. Congratulations on reaching level 10. You can now head to the main city and begin your adventure. After turning in the quest for the nth time, Fengwu finally reached level 10. On the last quest, she received a silver-grade sword. The sword was very beautiful and looked very powerful. Fengwu stored the silver-grade sword in her storage space. In her hand, she still held the bronze sword she received from the village chief's wife. She successfully left the village after 2 days through the teleportation circle. That's right, Fengwu girl had already stayed in the novice village for 2 days. During these 2 days, she had been doing quests to kill monsters. Fortunately, although the chain quests were very difficult, the rewards were also very amazing. Not only were the rewards amazing, but the experience was also higher as the difficulty increased. It was because of this that Fengwu was able to reach level 10 in a short 2 days. She could leave the novice village and head to the new map. Through the teleportation circle, Fengwu and the other level 10 newbies were teleported to the main city, Xihua City. In the virtual world, there were 4 main cities: Donghua City, Nanhua City, Xihua City, and Beihua City. These 4 cities were equivalent to safe zones in the game. In these 4 cities, players could not attack anyone, or else they would be captured by the guards. During the teleportation, Fengwu didn't know which city to go to, so she randomly chose a city to teleport to. With a flash of white light, Fengwu realized that the place she was standing in had changed from an ordinary village to a bustling city. Come. Don't miss out on this opportunity. This is the genius alchemist's new creation, a top-tier recovery potion. It can instantly recover mana. Just 20 silver coins. Take a look. A defensive robe made by a famous master tailor in the Mirage. Only 20 gold per piece. I'll repeat myself 3 times. If you're interested, hurry up and make your move. Bronze-ranked items are on sale. A must-have for Smurf accounts. There's no need to worry about farming monsters. What are you waiting for if you don't get it now? Magical beast egg. Magical beast egg. Only 10 gold per piece. There's a limited supply. Hurry up and buy. Fengwu looked around curiously. She was extremely curious about this magical world. For a moment, she almost forgot that her main purpose in coming here was to find Mingxi. After strolling around the bustling streets, Fengwu bought 5 steaming buns at the end of the street. After eating all of the meat buns, she rubbed her bloated belly, her face filled with satisfaction. After eating her fill, Fengwu finally found the Swordmaster Guild after asking a few kind-hearted natives. Newbies who came out of the novice village had to report to their own guild. There, they could receive a set of new clothes for level 10 and below, as well as a reward of 2 gold coins. In the end, the virtual world was different from holographic online games. The purpose of online games was to entertain and earn money from players, while the virtual world was to allow people to gain experience. Because of the difference in nature, there were naturally many differences. For example, in the virtual world, money from the outside world could not be brought in. It was unlike online games, where you could spend gold and ingots just by topping up your computer. Everyone in the virtual world had the same starting point. If you wanted money, you had to work hard to earn it. If you wanted to top up money, it was impossible. Fortunately, there were many ways to earn money in the virtual world. You could work to earn money, or you could go to the guild to accept quests. As long as you wanted to, you could always find a suitable method. After Fengwu found the Swordmaster Guild, she successfully reported to the Swordmaster Guild and received a new set of Swordmaster clothes, as well as a reward of 2 gold coins. Fengwu did not have much money on her at the moment. She only had 7 gold coins in total. 5 gold coins were earned from quests. Although it was only 7 gold coins, it was enough for food. In the virtual world, there was a hunger value. If the hunger value of the body of consciousness in the virtual world was too low, it would lose the ability to move. Because of this, the food industry in the virtual world had been developing very well. At the very least, there were adventurers who visited all the big and small restaurants every day. After changing into the new clothes, Fengwu directly left the Swordmaster Guild. Where could Senior Mingxi be? Ajur clearly said that Mingxi would be in the virtual world. After walking around the main city, Fengwu, who did not find anything, was extremely disappointed. She directly left the virtual world and used the communication crystal to contact Ajur again. Ajur, you said that Mingxi would be in the virtual world, but I can't find him. Fengwu girl said, feeling wronged. The virtual world is so damn big. You've already searched everywhere? Ajur said. No. Fengwu lowered her head, feeling that she had done something wrong. It's fine. Wait for me. I'll ask Senior Elena. She should know where Senior Mingxi is. Ajur could not bear to see Fengwu so disappointed, so he could only help her think of a way. Actually, according to Ajur's own thoughts, Mingxi and Fengwu were really not a suitable couple. Mingxi's status was too high. Fengwu was very pure and cute, better than all the girls he knew. But so what? With Mingxi's status and family background, he would never marry a woman who had given birth to a child. Therefore, no matter how good Fengwu was, Mingxi's family would never accept her. Because he had seen through this, he was not very enthusiastic about Fengwu's pursuit of Mingxi. Although he would occasionally watch the show, he did not want to give her a hand. He did not want to make this friend who he had worked so hard to make disappointed and sad. But now, in order to make Fengwu not sad, he had to take the initiative to find out where Mingxi was. No matter how unwilling he was, he had to go. He had promised Fengwu something. If he did not do it, that girl would be angry. He remembered that once he made Fengwu angry, and Fengwu did not speak to him for an entire week. If he had not apologized and agreed to many unfair terms, perhaps Fengwu would have directly given him a cold shoulder for a year. Chapter 187. Since he had promised to help find Mingxi, Ajur naturally wouldn't go back on his word in front of Fengwu. He obediently used the communication crystal to contact Elena, a permanent member of the Mingxi team. After learning about Mingxi's whereabouts from Elena, Ajur told Fengwu what he had found out. It turned out that Mingxi hadn't entered the virtual realm. Instead, he had brought the second-year juniors out for training. The training location wasn't particularly dangerous. After all, it was the first time the second-year fellows had gone out for training. Naturally, they wouldn't go to a place that was too dangerous. Mingxi was the chief student of the 5th year. As the chief student, he and another 5th-year student had brought 4 second-year juniors out for training. Before the training mission was completed, it was impossible for them to return. Of course, it was also impossible for them to enter the virtual realm. Hearing this answer, Fengwu was disappointed. Mingxi had already brought the juniors out. It was already impossible for her to find Mingxi. Ajur looked at Fengwu's disappointed little face and felt that it was strange. If anyone who knew him knew how he felt, their jaws would definitely drop to the ground. Who was Ajur? That guy had been a little devil since he was young. Among the aristocratic youths in Yanadu, he was the most difficult one to deal with. Who knew how many people had suffered at his hands? This guy had never been soft-hearted when it came to messing with people. You must be kidding me. Xiaowu, do you want me to go to the virtual realm with you? Ajur took a deep breath and asked as if he had made up his mind. Actually, he also had a mission. As the inheritor of the 4 god seals, his time was very tight. Now at home, he had to complete the missions that his father had assigned him every day and constantly improve his strength. According to his father, he hoped that he would grow up to be a qualified inheritor of the divine seal as soon as possible and not fall behind the other 3. That way he would be at ease. It was a pity that his father was relieved, but Ajur did not feel relieved at all. Although he could endure the high-intensity training every day, he did not have much personal time. This made Ajur, who was used to being free, feel very uncomfortable. He missed the days when he was free in school. Really? Fengwu's mood instantly turned for the better. It's true, but I can't accompany you for too long. I can only accompany you for 2 hours a day at most. Is it okay for you to play by yourself during the rest of the time? To be honest, what he was most worried about was whether Fengwu would encounter a swindler and be cheated or something. The word dumb was written all over this girl's face. It would be strange if those swindlers didn't make a move on her. No problem. Fengwu nodded seriously and said. After the two agreed, they agreed on a time to go to the ethereal plane together every day. This was Ajur's first time going to the ethereal plane. In the past he was still young, so his family did not allow him to enter the ethereal plane to gain experience. Now that he was about the same age and he had obtained a perception stone with his own strength, naturally, no one would stop him from going to the ethereal plane. However, before he went to meet up with Fengwu, he still had one more important thing to do, and that was to leave the novice village as soon as possible. Ajur was doing missions in the novice village to level up, while Fengwu was looking for work in Xihua City. Fengwu loved to eat, so money was more important to her. In the eyes of the Fengwu girl, money was equal to food. So if she wanted to eat, money was a must. After circling the city once, Fengwu successfully completed 2 errands and a monster hunting quest. The 3 quests gave her a reward of 1 gold coin. Fengwu's favorite quest was still the monster hunting quest, because those monsters would drop a small amount of coins. Although it was not a lot, no matter how small a mosquito was, it was still meat. Fengwu happily put away the coins. Fengwu was in a good mood. She could buy a few more buns. She was in a good mood, and the stabbing of the sword in her hand became smoother and smoother. Fengwu was currently doing a quest, and it was a bandit-type quest. Fengwu was looking for a quest on the streets when she happened to see a bandit hunting quest posted on the wall outside the city lord's mansion. The quest required her to eliminate a group of bandits outside Xihua City. At this time, Fengwu was on her way up the mountain. On this small mountain surrounded by bandits, there were more than 50 humanoid monsters guarding it. It could be said that there was a sentry every 3 steps and a sentry every 5 steps. They were keeping a close eye on her. After surveying the terrain a few times, Fengwu chose a place with fewer humanoid monsters to break through. She wanted to kill her way in alone with her sword. Unfortunately, she had just started fighting when she ran into a familiar face. Xiaowu. After a scream, a small figure wearing a swordmaster's robe jumped into Fengwu's arms. Tingyu. Fengwu's voice rose a pitch. Even though she still had that stoic face, it was obvious that she was in a good mood because of the person who jumped into her arms. Heavens, this is too much of a coincidence. I really didn't expect to run into Xiao Wu in the virtual realm. Ting Feng quickly ran over and ruffled Feng Wu's black and thick hair. Feng Wu didn't get angry and obediently allowed the siblings to do as they pleased. Xiao Wu, did you also accept a mission and come here to get rid of bandits? Pei Qing was also very happy to see Feng Wu. He played with his hair elegantly with his fingers. His long hair, which was originally dyed black, had turned into his original gray because of the influx of his spiritual power. Yes. Feng Wu nodded. That's great, we can work together. Listen to me, little dance. The monsters in this world are just as crazy as the magical beasts in the outside world. They can't be killed no matter how hard you try. It's impossible for a single person to take down this group of bandits alone. It's just a dream. Tingyu was afraid that Feng Wu didn't know how powerful these bandits were, so she immediately told Feng Wu everything about how difficult and powerful the monsters in the virtual realm were. Of course, she also exaggerated some of her own performance. Were they very powerful? Feng Wu blinked and thought carefully about the monsters she had defeated along the way. In the end, she came to the conclusion that they weren't particularly powerful. In Feng Wu's mind, the powerful ones were those that she couldn't defeat or those that were on the same level as her. Those that were weaker than her weren't considered powerful. The 4 members of the expert team had gathered. Only a Jur was left. Since Tingyu and the other 2 were accompanying them, Feng Wu didn't feel bored. The 4 of them killed monsters all the way up the mountain. During the process, they even took time to chat. Those who didn't know would think that they were on vacation. Because there were 4 more people, the speed of killing monsters increased significantly. They didn't expect to meet another group of people halfway up the mountain. This group of people was frighteningly handsome and beautiful. Everyone was wearing equipment that was silver or above. It was obvious that this was a group of tycoons. Moreover, these people's levels should be very high. In short, it was impossible for them to be below level 20 like the 4 of them. Chapter 188. In the Mirage, one's level had little to do with one's strength. A high level did not mean that one's strength was also high. The benefit of reaching a high level was that one could explore higher level maps. There were many places in the Mirage that had level restrictions. Only those who had reached a certain level could go to more places. If one's level was not high enough, no matter how strong one was, it was impossible to go to higher level maps. Moreover, the higher the maps, the more benefits one could obtain. This was also the reason why there were so many people working hard to level up, even though there was no relationship between level and strength. It was all for the sake of changing maps. Now that they had met a group of high-level adventurers, it seemed that they were like Feng Wu's group, here to get rid of evil. Pei Qing was wondering if he should take the initiative to greet them. Now that the 4 members of their expert team were here, he was the only one who could take on the diplomatic role. Tingyu and Tingfeng were careless people who wished for the world to be in chaos. Feng Wu was obviously a girl who was not good at socializing. How could he rest assured that such an important job like diplomacy would be handed over to the 3 of them? He did not want to draw a lot of hatred. Feng Wu? It's really you. You bad woman. Why are you here? Before Pei Qing could speak, a very unfriendly shout came from the group of adventurers opposite them. Pei Qing was very unhappy. Who was it? Who was so uneducated to dare to talk about his little sister Feng Wu like that? He looked over unhappily and saw a black-haired beauty in a magician's robe glaring angrily at Feng Wu. Her eyes were fierce and full of disgust. Is that Xiao Wu? It's really you. Xiao Wu, where did you go? Do you know how worried your mother was about you? A delicate black-haired figure holding a long sword stood next to the girl who had just spoken. From their expressions, it could be seen that the 2 of them had a good relationship. Tingting, why are you paying attention to her? When this bad woman is at home, she bullies you every day because she's the daughter of the first wife. How dare you call her sister? Qiu Ruoshui glanced at Feng Ting with disappointment, then turned to look at Feng Wu with even more dissatisfaction. Xiao Wu, is she someone you know? Tingyu whispered into Feng Wu's ear. In fact, she wanted to ask if they were enemies. No. Feng Wu shook her head affirmatively. You're actually pretending not to know me? Do you think we'll forget what you've done just because you pretend not to know me? You're dreaming. Qiu Ruoshui looked at Fengwu with disdain. She had a smug expression on her face that said, I've already seen through your scheme. Xiaowu, what did you do? Who is stopping you here to scold you? Ting Feng was very curious. With Fengwu's character, he didn't think that Fengwu could do anything that would make people angry. Ruoshui, don't talk about Xiaowu like that. No matter what, Xiaowu is my sister. Even if she's still my sister. Please stop talking about her. Feng Ting looked at Qiu Ruoshui very seriously, as if to express her feelings. She looked at Fengwu from time to time. Her eyes were full of sympathy, as if Fengwu had become a beggar now. Even if she was so? Pei Qing sneered secretly. This woman seemed to be more scheming than the one who shouted randomly. She didn't look like a fool who only knew how to shout randomly. She gave birth to a child out of wedlock and was kicked out of the Feng family, because she was pregnant with a wild man's bastard. She's no longer the daughter of the first wife of the Feng family. Why are you still so polite to her? Calling her sister, she's not worthy. She's just a bitch. Qiu Ruoshui's mouth was poisonous. Ruoshui, don't be like this. Xiaowu must have her difficulties. Feng Ting looked at Fengwu and then looked at Qiu Ruoshui with some embarrassment. Her beautiful face was full of embarrassment. She's originally... Clap, clap. Don't get me wrong. This was not applause. As the two sounds of clapping disappeared, a black-haired girl in blue lightly flew back to Pei Qing and others. You bitch, how dare you hit me? Qiu Ruoshui screamed in disbelief. Her eyes were full of grievance and resentment. She, Qiu Ruoshui, was the treasure of the family since she was born. Since she was young, the family didn't even dare to lay a finger on her. Today, she was hit by a bitch, which made her feel wronged and deeply humiliated. Fengwu, you bad woman. You're still as bad as before. You even dare to hit Ruoshui. One of the three boys who had been standing aside and didn't speak finally spoke. Ningfei looked at Fengwu angrily. He was very angry at Fengwu's behavior of hitting people. Fengwu was indeed a bad woman. She used to bully those girls who liked the team leader. Now she even dared to hit the team leader's sister. She was simply too bad. Apologize to Ruoshui immediately. If you don't blame me for hitting a woman. Lu Zong also spoke angrily. If it weren't for the fact that Fengwu was an ordinary person who couldn't cultivate, he would have raised his sword and killed her out of the virtual world. Only the last man in a golden robe didn't move. His eyes were slightly lowered, and there was a flash of light in his eyes. When Qiu Ruoshui angrily rushed to provoke Fengwu because she saw her, Jinli noticed a problem. As a waste of both magic and dou qi, it was impossible for Fengwu's spiritual force to connect to the virtual world. But at this moment, she really appeared. When Qiu Ruoshui was slapped, he found a more important problem. Fengwu could slap Qiu Ruoshui, who was not weak, twice in the face when the five of them didn't have time to react. In the end, she still escaped unscathed. Although it was because they didn't set up any defense, it was enough to show that she could already cultivate and had a high strength. What happened? Why did a waste that everyone thought of suddenly become so powerful? Naturally, no one would answer Jin Li's question for him. Because Fengwu's sudden attack directly led to the atmosphere of mutual hostility between the two sides. Apologize. Are you kidding? This woman inexplicably scolded Xiaowu when she saw her. She even scolded her so harshly. Xiaowu hit her well. She was hit so well that she cried out, "Umph." After that, he snorted coldly at Qiu Ruoshui, whose cheeks were obviously swollen. Ruoshui is telling the truth. You don't know how bad and hateful this woman is. She used to bully Tingting with her identity as the daughter of the first wife. She also used the status of the Feng family to bully people everywhere. Scolding her is a light punishment. It's better to kill such a hateful person like her. Ningfei glared at Fengwu with hatred. His ferocious look seemed as if he couldn't wait to rush up and tear Fengwu apart immediately. Bully? Fengwu would bully people? With her character, it should be good if she wasn't bullied. Were these people really talking about the same Fengwu as the one they recognized? Could it be that they recognized the wrong person? Pei Qing and the other two really suspected that the guy opposite them made a mistake and recognized the wrong person. Chapter 189. Let's not talk about whether or not they recognized the wrong person. Right now, both sides were talking back and forth and their eyes were filled with murderous intent. It looked like they were about to fight. Don't apologize. She's a bad person. She scolded me and Bao Bao. Fengwu looked at Qiu Ruoshui and the others with a firm expression. Her eyes even had a bit of accusation. That gaze made Qiu Ruoshui's teeth itch. Xiaowu, I'm sorry. Ruoshui didn't mean to scold you. I'll apologize on her behalf. But no matter what, you shouldn't have hit people. Ruoshui is Ruobai Gij's little sister. You like Ruobai Gij so much. How could you bear to hurt the family he cares about? Feng Ting's words seemed to want to ease the conflict between the two sides, but it had the opposite effect. Qiu Ruoshui, who was already extremely angry, was about to go crazy when she heard her brother's name. She's worthy of liking my brother. She really doesn't know her own name. My brother is a genius magician. She's trash in both magic and martial arts, yet she dares to like my brother. She thinks she's amazing just because she's the Feng family's legitimate daughter. Let me tell you, in my eyes, you're just a trash. You're vicious and unlikable. Even Juntian Gij doesn't like you. If I were you, I wouldn't have the face to live in this world. You've already lost so much face, yet you still dare to live. Your skin is really thick. Thinking of her brother Qiu Ruobai, he was the most talented person in their Qiu family. Yet he was targeted by a trash. This was simply an insult to her brother. Every time she thought of this matter, she regretted not taking advantage of the time when Fengwu was still in the Feng family, to find an opportunity to teach her a lesson. You like her brother? Ting Feng looked back at Fengwu in shock. I don't know him. Fengwu shook her head with a stoic expression. The Fengwu girl expressed that she completely didn't understand what the other was saying. What brother? Liking? Bullying? What did all of this mean? Xiaowu, how could you not know brother Ruobai? Didn't we grow up together? Feng Ting covered her mouth in shock, her eyes filled with disbelief. Ting Ting, why are you saying so much to her? This bad woman only knows how to bully you when she's in the Feng family. Don't worry about her. Let us get justice for Ruoshui first. Ning Fei pulled Fengwu behind him and pulled out the long sword in his hand. The tip of the sword was pointed at Fengwu. Apologize or I will kill you. Ning Fei glared at Fengwu with hatred. That's right. Apologize immediately. Otherwise you'll get it. Lu Zong chimed in from the side. The two's eyes were very unfriendly. It seemed that they were ready to attack. Looking at the two's appearance, even if they didn't kill Fengwu, they definitely wouldn't let her go. Because the degree of realism in the virtual world had reached 100%, one could feel the real pain if they were injured here. If they deliberately hurt Fengwu, it wouldn't be fun. What kind of ability are you two bullying a woman? If you have the ability, fight with us. Pei Qing pulled Tingfeng and stood in front of Fengwu. Come on, brother Pei Qing and stupid brother. You must hold on. Tingyu took out a small white handkerchief from somewhere and waved it as she cheered. Stop waving it. If I didn't know, I would think that you're holding up the white handkerchief to surrender. Tingfeng couldn't stand it and roared. She still called him stupid. His sister was clearly the stupid one. Tingyu thought about it, and it seemed to be true. So she put away the white handkerchief and took out a red one. She continued to cheer and her good mood wasn't affected at all. Come on. Come on. Brother Pei Qing is stupid. Tingfeng, come on. Fengwu was speechless. Ning Fei and Lu Zong were speechless. You have to think clearly. Is it wise to be enemies with us for such a woman? Thinking that the two of them were deceived by Fengwu, Ning Fei also wanted to persuade them to think clearly and not do stupid things for a crooked tree. It's you two who should think clearly. Do you really want to fight with us for that stupid woman? Tingfeng picked her ears and glanced at Qiu Ruoshui with disdain. You're kind but unrewarded. How dare you speak ill of Ruoshui? Today, I must teach you a lesson on behalf of Ruoshui. The Ning family, like the Feng family, was an aristocratic family with a 1,000-year-old inheritance. In such a family, the sword skills collected were not a small number, and their grades were not low. As the young master of the Ning family, Ning Fei's sword skills were of a very high grade. Ning Fei used the sword skill of the intermediate sword skill, and used all his strength. He was determined to kill Fengwu and others out of the virtual world. As for Fengwu's opponent, it was actually Tingfeng. Tingfeng blocked this move with a backhand sword, and then she was entangled with Ningfei. The two of them fought back and forth with considerable strength, which surprised the people on Qiu Ruoshui's side. They thought that these people were just nobodies that Fengwu cheated from somewhere. They didn't expect that one of them actually had the strength equal to Ningfei. Although Ningfei's strength was not the highest among them, it was by no means low. Coupled with the Ning family's thousand-year-old combat experience and superb sword skills, it was completely impossible for a sword master without any foundation to win against him. But now this young man, who was not in their eyes, had the strength to surprise them. How could this not surprise them? Feng Ting slightly lowered her eyelids, and the hand holding the sword tightened. She didn't expect that after being kicked out of the Feng family, she would still be able to make such a powerful friend. This young man was able to fight evenly with Ningfei, so he must be a descendant of an aristocratic family. Otherwise, with the Ning family's thousand-year-old inheritance, it would be impossible for an ordinary sword master to block his attack. How could Fengwu's luck be so good? Thinking about herself, in order to obtain Feng Juentian's love and Qiu Ruobai's friendship, she schemed everywhere, deliberately angering Fengwu many times to raise her own image. It wasn't easy to make everyone think that she was a girl who constantly strived to improve herself. Even if she was suppressed by her jealous sister, she was still a strong and hardworking girl. In order to obtain Qiu Ruobai's good impression, she even tried every possible means to become friends with the bad-tempered Qiu Ruoshui. Enduring her bad temper everywhere, she did so much. Wasn't it just to replace Fengwu's position? When Fengwu unexpectedly got pregnant, she thought that Fengwu was dead for sure. Grandfather didn't like her, and her father didn't put much thought into her. Her mother was also a person made of water, who only knew how to cry every day. Feng Juntian also didn't have much sibling affection for her. She thought that Fengwu's death was a foregone conclusion. She never thought that the entire Feng family would plead for Fengwu with her grandfather, and in the end Fengwu would die. Although Fengwu was sent away, as long as Madame Lan was still here, Fengwu still had a chance to come back. She couldn't touch Madame Lan, but Fengwu had to die. As long as she died, she could become the Feng family's only young miss and no longer have to live a lowly life as a concubine's daughter. Chapter 190. She finally followed the people her grandfather sent, and found the village where Fengwu was. After Qinglian and the others left, she bribed a group of fierce bandits to rob the village. She thought Fengwu was dead this time. She didn't expect to hear from her grandfather that Fengwu was still alive. How could her life be so tough? She escaped death twice. Now not only was she alive, but she also knew a few friends who didn't seem to be simple. Why could Fengwu get what she wanted so easily, but she had to scheme everywhere? Was it just because Fengwu was the daughter of the first wife? She refused to accept it. Except for being the daughter of the first wife, she was inferior to Fengwu in every aspect. She would not lose to Fengwu. Fengwu, as long as I Feng Ting am alive, you can forget about returning to the Feng family. Don't even think about it in this lifetime. Qiu Ruoshui and the others didn't know that the strong and independent girl in their eyes had such deep hatred in her heart. All their attention was now attracted by the two people who were fighting. Lu Ning saw that the two were in a stalemate. He pulled out his sword and wanted to rush over to help. Unfortunately, he was stopped by a magic staff when he just gathered his duki and rushed over. Don't mess around. Your opponent is me. Pei Qing had long been on guard against someone coming to help. The moment he saw Lu Zong make a move, he had already held his magic staff in his hand. You're courting death. Lu Zong naturally wouldn't be polite to Pei Qing. He slashed his sword at Pei Qing without mercy. If he was hit, he would be directly killed out of the virtual world. The sword was very fast. The Lu family's swordsmanship had always been famous for its speed. If you wanted to break the Lu family's swordsmanship, you could only use your strength to resist unless you were faster than them. Sure enough, under the gaze of Qiu Ruoshui and the others, Lu Zong's long sword directly cut Pei Qing's head and split him in half. Lu Zong, you're awesome. Qiu Ruoshui shouted happily. Unfortunately, this joy did not last long. Lu Zong's expression changed, and he quickly turned around to block the attack. Seeing this, Qiu Ruoshui and Feng Ting realized that Lu Ning did not hit Pei Qing. It was just an afterimage. Originally, Lu Zong's speed was very advantageous in the battle, but he was unlucky. He just had to face a space mage. Who could be faster than a space mage? Pei Qing was different from ordinary magicians. Not only was his magic level not low, but he had also seriously studied martial arts for a period of time. Everyone knew that a magician's weakness was that he couldn't let his opponent take advantage of him. However, this weakness was not a problem for Pei Qing. Whether it was long-range attacks or close-range attacks, he should be able to handle them with ease. This person is very powerful. Not only is he a rare space mage, but he has also learned martial arts well. With his martial arts combined with magic attacks, Lu Zong is definitely not his opponent, Jin Li said faintly after watching for a while. Brotherly, are you just going to watch and not do anything? Qiu Ruoshui was so anxious that she stomped her feet. She did not want her friend to lose to Feng Wu's people. Don't worry. He won't really die anyway. Jin Li stood aside silently and began to play dead. If you don't care, then forget it. I'll do it myself. Glaring at Jin Li, Qiu Ruoshui rushed forward with her magic staff. Feng Ting had no choice but to follow with her sword. Xiao Wu, tell your friend to stop. Don't make mistakes again. Feng Ting looked at Feng Wu with heartache. The words that came out of her mouth were to push all the blame to Feng Wu. Hee. Didn't you say that you're Xiao Wu's elder sister? Is there an elder sister like you? It's fine if you don't help when your younger sister is being scolded by a woman. But Feng Wu has avenged herself and you still want Feng Wu to apologize to her. Now it's even funnier. You're actually pushing all the blame to Xiao Wu. Who do you think you are? I've already recorded who's right and who's wrong with the impression stone. Do you want to find someone else to judge? Tingyu held a small white stone in her hand and proudly shook it. Originally, she had been recording with the image stone because she wanted to record the four of them killing the bandits. She didn't expect that she would record a good show. Feng Ting's face turned pale. She really did not expect that Feng Wu's people would have such a trick up their sleeves. If what she did today was seen by her father, Madame Lan, and her grandfather, they would not forgive her. In her grandfather's eyes, no matter how bad Feng Wu was, she was still a member of the Feng family and the legitimate daughter. She, a concubine's daughter, did not help her own people in front of outsiders. Instead, she helped Qiu Ruoshui. No matter what the relationship between the Feng family and the Qiu family was, in her grandfather's eyes, she was already a traitor. Qiu Ruoshui's face also changed. She also did not want this video to be spread. The Feng family and the Qiu family were old friends. The two families had been friends for thousands of years. Even if she looked down on Feng Wu, she would never dare to say a bad word about her in front of the elders of the two families. At most, she would use some tricks behind her back to teach her a lesson. If this video was spread out and the Feng family and her elders saw it, then she would be in big trouble. Hand over the impression stone, Feng Wu. I haven't seen you for more than a year. You've become so despicable and shameless. You even use such a dirty trick. Qiu Ruoshui was so angry that she scolded. You'd better pay attention to your image. I'm still recording here. If you piss me off, I'll sell the image in the impression stone to the Virtual Realm Daily News. Let's see what you can do. Tingyu was not afraid of her. She pointed the impression stone at Qiu Ruoshui and recorded happily. Although the virtual realm did not have a forum for all adventurers to communicate, there was a Virtual Realm Daily News. The Virtual Realm Daily News was founded by the Aborigines, but the concept of the newspaper was proposed by Longza Gamer. When Longza Gamer created the virtual realm, he created such a newspaper in the virtual realm. The Virtual Realm Daily News did nothing but pay attention to all kinds of gossip about adventurers and Aborigines. If they sold the news to the Virtual Realm Daily News, not only could they take revenge on these two annoying women, but they could also make a small sum of money. Why not? Don't you dare. Qiu Ruoshui was so angry that her face turned green. Try me. Tingyu did not care at all. Instead, she continued to provoke her without fear of death. Ting Ting, do it. We can't let this impression stone leak out. Qiu Ruoshui was very anxious. After exchanging a look with Feng Ting, the two of them attacked Tingyu from the left and right. Tingyu was not easy to deal with. She took out her weapon from the space and fought with the two women. However, these two women, one was a sword master and the other was a magician. One of them attacked her from afar, and the other from close range. It was still very difficult for her to deal with. Fortunately, she was not in a difficult situation for too long because Fengwu made her move. Fengwu used the 5th and 6th forms of the Luo Ing sword technique consecutively. She immediately lured away Qiu Ruoshui, who was helping from afar. Chapter 191. Qiu Ruoshui was a wood and water dual-element magician. Her strength was not bad. She was also a well-known little genius among the aristocratic ladies of the ancient eastern country. Unfortunately, her reputation as a genius didn't get through many battles. Compared to Fengwu, who fought with animals on Mount Yuehua every day, she naturally lacked a lot of battle experience. Everyone on the continent knew that most magicians had small long-range abilities. Once someone got close to them, they wouldn't be able to use any tricks no matter how many tricks they had. Originally, a magician wouldn't let someone get close to them so easily. However, Qiu Ruoshui didn't put Fengwu in her eyes. In her eyes, Fengwu was a good-for-nothing in both magic and qi. If Qiu Ruoshui was born on Earth in the 21st world, she would definitely know a phrase called the counterattack of a good-for-nothing. Unfortunately, this girl didn't know. It didn't matter if she didn't know. However, this girl thought highly of herself and despised Fengwu's predecessor from the bottom of her heart. In the end, this girl didn't think that Fengwu would pose any threat to her, so she didn't put up any defense against Fengwu at all. With Fengwu's 2 consecutive sword moves, the magic staff in Qiu Ruoshui's hand was easily sent flying. This simply stunned everyone's eyes. The people on Qiu Ruoshui's side didn't expect that a good-for-nothing in both magic and qi could defeat Qiu Ruoshui. This was King unscientific. Regardless of whether it was scientific or not, Qiu Ruoshui had already lost. Moreover, she had lost to someone she had always looked down on. This failure was countless times greater than losing to her own brother and a group of her brother's friends. It directly made Qiu Ruoshui stare at her hands blankly, completely unable to recover. Until now, she still couldn't believe that she had lost to a 2-element good-for-nothing. Jin Li, who hadn't made a move, frowned slightly when he saw this scene. He walked over with his long legs, picked up the magic staff that Fengwu had knocked down, and put it back in Qiu Ruoshui's hand. "Stop fighting." Jin Li's voice was very calm, but there was an irresistible meaning in it. Ning Fei and Lu Zong were used to listening to Jin Li when their captain and vice-captain were not around. Naturally, they carried out Jin Li's orders immediately. The two of them quickly left the battlefield and flew back to Jin Li's side. Pei Qing and Ting Feng only raised their eyebrows, put away their weapons, and returned to stand beside Fengwu. Ting Yu and Feng Ting had also stopped and returned to their respective teams. No. This was impossible. You can't practice magic or doqi. How could you possibly be my opponent? This is absolutely impossible. It was not until everyone returned to their respective teams that Qiu Ruoshui recovered from the blow of losing to Fengwu just now. She screamed and pointed her magic staff at Fengwu. Her eyes filled with hatred and panic. "That's enough. Let's go back to the city." Jin Li frowned secretly. Both sides were the sisters of his good friend. Even if Fengwu was not as favored as Qiu Ruoshui in the Qiu family, he didn't want these two to really fight in front of him. Are we just going to let them go? Ning Fei was still very unconvinced and didn't want to leave at all. Their equipment and weapons were clearly much better than theirs. If they fought for a long time, Fengwu's people might not be a match for them. But now they had to retreat without a fight, which was unacceptable to Ning Fei. "Tisk!" Ting Feng heard the words and snorted disdainfully. What was this? Who wouldn't let go of who? Ting Yu was naturally on the same side as her brother at this time. A pair of big eyes stared over impolitely, and her small face pretended to be fierce and made a strange grimace. She must be Juantian's sister. What else do you want? The implication was that even if he didn't give face to the monk, he had to give face to the Buddha. I don't want this kind of sister. After fiercely glaring at Fengwu, Ningfei said fiercely. Although his mouth was fierce, he had already put away his weapon. It seemed that he had thought it through. No, we can't just let it go. She slapped me twice. Should we just let her go? Qiu Ruoshui was very unconvinced. She had never been slapped since she was a child. If they just let Fengwu go, where would she put her face as the legitimate daughter of the Qiu family? You also scolded her for so long. You didn't lose anything. Jinli saw it clearly from the beginning to the end. This matter was stirred up by Qiu Ruoshui from the beginning. Fengwu's side didn't want to pay attention to it at first. If Qiu Ruoshui didn't speak more and more harshly, the following things wouldn't have happened at all. Brother Jinli, whose side are you on? Why are you helping this bitch? Qiu Ruoshui didn't expect Jinli to say this at all. Her whole face turned blue. I won't help anyone. Jinli's reaction was still indifferent. Take her away. Ruobai is still waiting for us. Let's not do this mission for now. In any case, they were doing this mission to pass time and wait for Qiu Ruobai to come up and find them. Now that the time was almost up, Qiu Ruobai should be arriving soon. Naturally, there was no need to continue doing this mission. Wait a minute, Brother Li. We have to get the impression stone back. Right now, it didn't matter whether they fought or not. The most important thing was the impression stone. This impression stone couldn't be leaked out. If it was seen by the Feng family, she would be in big trouble. Feng Ting was extremely anxious in her heart, but it couldn't be seen on her face. Qiu Ruoshui thought that Feng Ting was concerned about getting the impression stone back for her, and was secretly moved. She never thought that her best friend was only doing this for her own position in the Feng family. It doesn't matter if you don't get it back. Do you really think that they would dare to leak the contents of the impression stone if they aren't afraid that their good friend's past will be dug out by everyone? Jinli faintly smiled and said as if he had a card up his sleeve. Tingyu coldly snorted and turned her head away from them. Although she didn't want to admit it, she really didn't plan on leaking the impression stone. There were many Notre Dame du Starlight students in the virtual realm. If the contents of the impression stone leaked out, although Qiu Ruoshui's reputation would be damaged, Fengwu's matter would definitely be brought up as well. She naturally wouldn't do such a stupid thing that would harm the enemy by 1,000 and harm themselves by 800. The reason why she took out the impression stone was only to anger the two women, who knew that there would be a smart person in the other party, who saw through all her concerns. Feng Ting was originally a smart girl. Just now, she had been disrupted by the sudden incident. Now that she was reminded by Jinli, she naturally figured out the crux of the matter. Her originally worried heart finally settled down. Let's go. After Jinli finished speaking, he led the way down the mountain. Of course, the few people behind him also followed. However, before they left, whether it was Qiu Ruoshui, Ningfei, or Lu Zong, they all fiercely glared at Fengwu and the people around her before they left. Only Feng Ting had a hesitant expression when she looked at Fengwu. After glancing at Fengwu awkwardly, Feng Ting also left. Suddenly, only Fengwu's group of 4 were left on the entire mountainside. Chapter 192. The wind blew, and the grass swayed in the wind. The leaves rustled, and the sun shone warmly on their bodies, brightening their moods. After the last strike, a line of words appeared in front of the 4 of them. Extermination mission completed. Adventurers, please return to Xihua City to complete the mission and receive your reward. After the 4 of them killed the bandit leader, they received a number of gold coins, weapons, and materials. It was a bountiful harvest. After they went down the mountain and completed the mission, the 4 of them split the loot and wanted to find a place to have a big meal. Although the 4 of them weren't rich, the hotels and restaurants in the virtual dimension weren't too expensive. They had just made a small fortune from the mountain bandits and received the mission reward when they handed in the mission. Although their wallets weren't too big, they weren't too flat either. They could afford to go to a restaurant and have a big meal. The 4 of them chose a restaurant that looked decent and went in. They asked the waiter to bring them to a private room on the 2nd floor. The 4 of them ordered a table of dishes and were ready to eat. While waiting for the dishes, the 4 of them naturally chatted. Xiao Wu, When did you come to the virtual dimension? Tingyu asked curiously as she held Fengwu's hand. 3 days ago. Fengwu thought about it expressionlessly. It seemed like it had been 3 days. Then we came earlier than you. We've been here for 7 days. I didn't expect that we would be so fated to meet in the same city in the virtual dimension. There are 4 main cities in the virtual dimension, and there's a 1 in 4 chance of meeting each other. We really are fated, Tingfeng said. Xiaowu, aren't you curious as to why we have the sensor stone? Pei Qing saw that Fengwu had not asked this question, so he decided to lead Fengwu to ask first. Mission reward, Fengwu said matter-of-factly. Pei Qing almost spilled the tea in his hand, and Tingfeng choked on her own saliva. Tingyu's jaw almost fell to the ground. The 3 of them looked at Fengwu in disbelief. When did Fengwu have the ability to predict the future? They hadn't seen each other for a while, but she knew so clearly what they hadn't talked about. This was too godly. You. How did you know? Tingfeng stuttered. Ajur told me. Fengwu girl said seriously. Boss Ajur was already so godly? Or was it that the captain had been paying attention to them? It turned out that the captain cared so much about them. He even knew that they had completed a mission and obtained 3 high-level sensor stones. He was too amazing. As expected of the inheritor of the 4 god seals. The 3 of them didn't think that this was actually a beautiful misunderstanding. When Fengwu and Ajur had talked about the sensor stone, Ajur had said that the sensor stone was rarely sold. If one wanted to obtain a sensor stone, it was usually obtained through completing a mission. In school, other than the elementary sensor stone that was given out at the beginning, if one wanted to obtain a higher-level sensor stone, they could only obtain points through the school's missions. Once they had accumulated a certain amount of points, they could use the points to exchange for a better sensor stone. As for how good the sensor stone was, it depended on how many points you had. In other places, like the royal family and a few large families, the sensor stones were distributed in a similar way. So when Pei Qing asked Fengwu why they had obtained the sensor stone, Fengwu said that they obtained it from completing a mission. In fact, she didn't finish her sentence. What she meant was that they exchanged it for points through completing a mission. Because Fengwu didn't explain clearly, Pei Qing and the others misunderstood. The 3 of them thought that Ajur was actually still concerned about them. It had to be said that this was a beautiful misunderstanding. Captain actually cares about us so much. Even after returning to school, he has always been watching us. Tingfeng used her sleeve to wipe her tears. She had an indescribably moved expression on her face. Captain is too good. If we knew that he was so concerned about us, we would have gone to Notre Dame du Starlight to see him early on. Tingyu also pretended to be moved. Who is concerned about you guys? You're thinking too much. Bye, Ajur. I used to think that Captain didn't want to pay attention to us. It turns out that I misunderstood him. Pei Qing had an expression of I was wrong on his face as he lowered his head and repented. Ajur, you're really thinking too much. Hurry up and go to bed. Fengwu, what happened? Just then the dishes were served. A large table of fish and meat was laid out on the table. The 4 of them chatted while eating, and soon forgot about Ajur. Xiaowu, let me tell you, we were really lucky this time. Grand Duke Arnold's grandson actually went missing. He used 3 high-grade sensor stones as a reward to post a mission in the Adventurers Guild. At the time, there were hundreds of people who accepted this mission. We were really lucky. We actually met the human trafficker who kidnapped Grand Duke Arnold's grandson. That person wasn't very skilled, and was sent flying by my idiot brother with a kick. That human trafficker was also unlucky. He confessed that he was just an ordinary person. A few days ago, someone hid a child in his house and gave him a lot of gold coins. In the end, that person didn't come to him for the child, so he had evil intentions. He wanted to sell the child for a sum of money. At the time, Grand Duke Arnold's grandson had already been changed into a commoner's clothes by that kidnapper. That's why the person who wanted to sell the child thought that it was just an ordinary child. If he knew that it was Grand Duke Arnold's grandson, he wouldn't have dared to do that even if he had 10 guts. After that, we easily rescued the child and even received 3 sensor stones as a reward. Aren't we very lucky? The three of them spoke one after another about how they obtained the sensor stones. Fengwu listened quietly as she ate, nodding her head from time to time. After the meal, Ting Feng and the other two left the ethereal realm, because they had other matters to attend to. Feng Wu, on the other hand, continued to wander around the ethereal realm. After a round, she ran out of the city to look for trouble with those humanoid monsters. Compared to beast-shaped monsters, Feng Wu preferred humanoid monsters because beast-shaped monsters reminded her of her animal friends. She didn't think too much about humanoid monsters and didn't hesitate to kill them. Her efficiency was much higher than killing beast-shaped monsters. That girl is so powerful. She can actually kill so many humanoid monsters by herself. Not far away from Fengwu, 2 boys and 3 girls happened to be looking in Fengwu's direction. One of the girls even pointed at Fengwu and exclaimed in surprise. The 3 girls were second-year students in the Notre Dame du Starlight's pharmacy department. They didn't have strong combat abilities, so the first thing they did after arriving in the ethereal plane was to find some strong men for them to rely on. The 3 of them were originally beauties, and with the Notre Dame du Starlight signboard, they actually found some spendthrifts who were willing to help them level up. Chapter 193. The 2 boys behind them were attracted by their status as Notre Dame du Starlight students and their beauty. What's so great about her? She's at least 30 years old. It's not strange for her to have such strength at such an age. Another girl said with jealousy and disdain. I don't think so. She looks like she's only in her teens. The last girl said weakly. You idiot. Can't she use a prop? There are many props in the virtual world that can change one's appearance. I don't believe that a girl in her teens can fight so many humanoid monsters alone. Don't underestimate a woman's jealousy. Some women hated someone for no reason. Stan, do you think that person used a prop? I don't believe that her real age is what it looks like. The man named Stan looked at Fengwu, and then at the little beauty in front of him. There were indeed many props in the virtual world, but other than some masks that were easier to see through, the rest were not so easy to see through. He really couldn't tell whether the girl in front of him used a prop or not. It's hard to say. If she used a high-level prop, then it wouldn't be visible to the naked eye, Stan said after some consideration. Wait a minute. Why do I feel like I've seen this girl somewhere before? One of the girls suddenly said. What are you talking about, Nania? You've seen her before? Mei Li, who had been suspecting that Fengwu had used a prop to change her age, frowned and asked. At the same time, she thought to herself that Nania actually found that girl familiar. Could it be that she was also a student of Notre Dame du Starlight? Thinking of this, the jealousy in her heart deepened. If she was really a student of Notre Dame du Starlight, then her age couldn't be faked. As a genius, Mei Li used to be in existence in her family. However, when she came to Notre Dame du Starlight, she realized that her vision was still too low. There were too many geniuses in this world. Every student of Notre Dame du Starlight was a genius. Mediocre people couldn't enter Notre Dame du Starlight. However, there were differences between geniuses. For example, after entering Notre Dame du Starlight, Mei Li was reduced to an ordinary person. Only those who surpassed most people could still maintain their genius title. Probably because she couldn't keep her title as a genius, she didn't know when it started, but Mei Li started to dislike those who had better talent than her. Even if she was a girl, if someone had better talent than her, she would always think of ways to mess with them. All of the genius girls that Mei Li had taken a fancy to had their reputations ruined by her. Outside, there were rumors that those girls bullied others and looked down on other students because of their talent. Only a small number of people knew that all of this was an illusion created by Mei Li and her little friends. Could she be from our school? Marcy asked doubtfully, coincidentally voicing out the suspicions in Mei Li's heart. The only 2 men present had the same expression as they kept their mouths shut. They were also curious about the girl's identity. Although powerful girls were not rare in the Mirage, it was rare to see such a young age. Ah, I remember now, isn't she that Fengwu? Nania slapped her head and finally remembered Fengwu's identity. Fengwu? Ah, it's that Fengwu. It can't be. The three of us are so lucky to be able to meet her even though the mirage is so big. It really is her. I've seen her from afar once before. If Nania hadn't mentioned it, I would have almost forgotten that there was such a person. Is she really your classmate? The boy named Sherdan curiously approached the three of them and asked. She's also a second year? Another boy named Saiban was also curious about this question. Mei Li snorted coldly and glanced at the two boys who asked the question. Where did such a shameless woman come from in our second year? This woman is in her first year. A new student who just entered this year. So she's a freshman, but she's really amazing. A freshman with such strength. I'm afraid that she's definitely one of the best among the freshmen. No wonder you all know her. It seems like she's quite famous in your school. The two boys thought they understood each other. What nonsense are you talking about? Mei Li rolled her eyes at the two of them. She is very famous among the freshmen, but that is not a good reputation. Don't look at her young age. She is the only student in our school who has already given birth to a child. That's not all. She's already the mother of a child, and she's still going around seducing men. She's in our student cafeteria, and she confessed her love to the 5th year's chief, Senior Ming Shi. I don't know where she got her face from. Furthermore, after being rejected, she became braver and braver and kept pestering Senior Ming Shi. Last time, Senior Ming Shi and the others went to the Soya Empire to train, but in the end, I don't know where that Fengwu heard about it, but she actually shamelessly chased after him and pestered Senior Ming Shi all the way to the two-realm battlefield. She's really too shameless. The three girls began to criticize Fengwu one by one. Some of these were things they heard from other sources, and some were their own guesses. Ming Shi's appearance was as beautiful as the moonlight, and his temperament was even more elegant and noble. In addition to the various guesses about his true identity in the school, Ming Shi had always been the dream lover of most of the girls in the school. Mei Li and the other two naturally admired Ming Shi, but unfortunately, a perfect and outstanding man like Ming Shi was too far away from them. It was probably because they couldn't get him that they hated Fengwu so much when they saw a woman like Fengwu, who was already a mother, shamelessly chasing after Ming Shi. Fengwu didn't know that she was hated by others again. The Fengwu girl was now very happy killing monsters. Every monster would drop a small amount of money. Being able to level up and pick up money, there was nothing more delightful than this. Steamed buns, delicious steamed buns. As Fengwu killed monsters, she thought about going to the city to buy steamed buns, and also some chicken drumsticks. Because she had entered the virtual world, Fengwu naturally couldn't bring many of the delicious food stored in her ring into the virtual world. Therefore, she had no choice but to work hard to make money to buy delicious food in order to fill up her spatial bag. While Fengwu was happily killing monsters, Mei Li and the other two were using a messenger familiar to inform someone about Fengwu. Half an hour later, Fengwu had already picked up many scattered copper coins. How many steamed buns could she buy with so many copper coins? Fengwu frowned and began to recall how many copper coins she had picked up. Chapter 194. Big sister, can you bring me along? I don't know how to level by myself. A soft and cute baby voice suddenly sounded behind Fengwu. Fengwu instinctively turned around and saw a girl around her age looking at her with a red face. Her expression was shy and at a loss. Carry her? If that girl could read minds, she would definitely see the question marks in Fengwu's heart. How do I carry her? Where do I take her? The Fengwu girl's expressionless face perfectly concealed her ignorance. Where do I take you? Fengwu asked. Girl, she's doing this on purpose, right? Can you carry me to level up? I want to reach level 20 as soon as possible, but the monsters here are too strong. I can't deal with them alone. The girl's voice was full of grievance, and her eyes quickly reddened. From afar, it looked as if Fengwu was bullying her. No. Fengwu didn't even need to think before giving the answer. Ah. Originally, the girl thought that Fengwu would at least consider it. Who knew that Fengwu didn't even need to think before giving the answer? Big sister, I won't take advantage of you. I'll help you pick up bags. With me here, you don't need to stop picking up bags anymore. You can directly kill monsters. This way it'll be much faster. The girl's baby voice carried a hint of urgency. No need. Fengwu still shook her head. If you want to level up, you can go to the city to do other quests. If you're not strong enough, it's best if you don't come out. Otherwise, you'll be a burden to others. Fengwu looked at her seriously for half a minute. After saying these words in a deadpan manner, she left without looking back. Don't go. You can't just leave like this. The girl looked at Fengwu's departing figure, and was so angry that she stomped her feet. She couldn't maintain the cute expression on her face. Unfortunately, Fengwu did not pay any attention to her. She left the place where she had been farming monsters for over an hour, and returned to the city. Not long after Fengwu left, Mei Li and the other two appeared. Behind Fengwu and the other two, a peerlessly beautiful woman walked out. Beside the woman, there was also a cute young girl with a confused look on her face. The young girl's eyes were filled with innocence and purity. She looked very spirited, giving people a good impression of her at first glance. Senior Diane, I'm sorry I failed. Her intuition is too strong. The girl who asked for help immediately said carefully, when she saw the beautiful girl behind Messi. Her attitude was humble and fawning, and there was even a flattering smile on her face. It's not your fault. I'll think of another way to deal with her. The beautiful Diane's red lips parted slightly, as if she didn't care at all. Big sister, what are you talking about? The confused young girl opened her bright eyes wide in curiosity. She looked as cute as a little rabbit. When the beautiful woman heard the young girl's voice, her originally cold face suddenly melted like snow. There was even a hint of a gentle smile on her face. Nothing much, Diane. Nicole just wanted a classmate to help her level up, but that classmate rejected her. Diane said casually. Oh. Diane nodded. Her little face with some baby fat looked even cuter. That person doesn't love her classmates. Why don't you come with us to level up? Diane thought of Nicole being rejected and felt a little sorry for her, so she kindly extended an invitation. Nicole's face stiffened when she heard this. She immediately shook her head. No need, no need. I still have things to do. Next time, Miss Diane. Let's go, Diane. Big sister just saw a necklace that suits you. Wear that tribute necklace. The next time you see Mingxi, you'll definitely charm him to death. Diane teased. Big sister, I'm not talking to you anymore. Diane shyly stomped her foot and ran away with a red face. You did well this time. These 3 pieces of silver equipment are your reward. With a wave of Diane's hand, 3 silver staffs flew out and were delivered to Mei Li and the other 2. Thank you, Senior Diane. The 3 of them happily accepted Diane's reward, their faces filled with excitement. Nicole, try to get close to him again. If you still can't succeed, come find me again. After Diane finished speaking, she chased after her younger sister and left. Fengwu was completely unaware of what had happened after she left. Not long after she returned to Huaxi City, Ajur came to the Mirage. Surprisingly, other than Ajur, Elena was also there. Fengwu, big sister hasn't seen you in a while. You're getting cuter and cuter. As soon as Elena saw Fengwu, she rushed up to Fengwu and gave her a bear hug. Those well-developed breasts buried Fengwu's entire face. Fengwu's face was flushed red, and she looked a little pitiful. In the end, Ajur couldn't stand it anymore and rescued her. Senior Elena, please don't bully Xiao Wu. Ajur didn't hesitate to save Fengwu, and he even scolded his senior sister for her insolence. Stingy. Elena snorted softly, but didn't say anything. She just pulled Fengwu's hand, and the 3 of them walked into a decent-looking restaurant, ready to eat and catch up. Xiao Wu, you have to be careful when you're alone. Although the Mirage isn't a real world, there are still many dangers for us. In this world, if we're injured by the same adventurer, we'll be forced out of the Mirage, and our spirit will be greatly damaged. When that happens, even if we have spirit recovery potions, it'll take a long time for our spirit to recover. You have to be careful. Don't be so gullible as to believe what others say. If someone asks you for money or something, don't give it to them, okay? They're not good people. As Elena had a good impression of Fengwu, she couldn't wait to pass on some of her experiences to Fengwu as soon as she sat down. Fengwu sat next to Elena obediently. Elena was in charge of talking, and she was in charge of nodding. Ajur asked Fengwu about her experiences in the Mirage. Fengwu didn't hide anything, and told Ajur everything that had happened. From meeting the other members of the expert team, to meeting that strange group of people, to a strange person who ran out not long ago and asked to be taken along. She told him everything that she could. Pei Qing and the others are here, too. They even got an advanced sensory stone. They're really King lucky. Ajur thought that he wouldn't be able to hear news about Pei Qing and the others for a while. He didn't expect news about them to come so quickly. Do you know who those people are? They dared to cause trouble for Fengwu and even dared to attack her. No matter who they were, he would definitely teach them a lesson. Ajur swore to himself. At this moment, Qiu Ruoshui, who was crying to her brother, suddenly shivered. What's going on? Her back was cold. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.